Okay, folks, we are streaming live. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting. Today, we will be discussing House Bill 670. And so what we're going to do is go through the bill from front to back and let folks offer amendments. We are going to do our best to keep this at 2 hours. But we will continue because we need to get this done and we'd like to put a bow in it today. So that's the plan. Everyone is here except Delegate McComas, who I believe is on the way, and everyone, she's not on the way? Maybe, okay. And everyone has an interlineated, I have to say that slow to make sure I say it right, interlineated copy with the amendments that we know of that we have already accepted and in conceptually that we did accept or that we know that people are going to offer. And so with that being said, I do want to take the opportunity to personally thank Claire on behalf of this subcommittee. She has been working around the clock, folks, to make sure that we can look at the bill in its entirety with the 5 million amendments and things that have been going back and forth and that we've been discussing. So I am very, very much appreciative of that, as is the subcommittee. So with that, Matt Jackson is here to help us move through this. And so we are going to start, and a lot of this we've already discussed. So we're not necessarily going to have multiple conversations on things that we've already agreed on. But I think, Matt, do we want to start on page 5? So when I say page numbers, I'm looking, everybody should see a handwritten page number. Matt, is that what you want to refer to, or do you want to use the page numbers at the top?
Yeah, so use the page numbers, whatever version you have. There should be numbers down at the bottom right-hand side of each page. So use those numbers. Everything else with the interlineated copies is quite off. So refer to the bottom right-hand corner.
Okay, and Liz, do you want to try to get it up on the screen?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, but we can start. So I think that's where we're starting on page 5.
Sure.
And Erican, I believe Delegate Erican, you have an amendment, or she needs a minute, an amendment that she was going to offer.
We have an amendment up at the top of the page too.
What page are we on? I'm so sorry, guys.
So use the page numbers at the bottom of the page.
Yep.
And so everyone should be on page 5. And then we're also, Liz, is that the right version? Because mine has handwritten numbers on the bottom. Keep scrolling down, please, Liz.
Yes, yours is the only one, Vice Chair, with the handwritten numbers, but their numbers reflect the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
That's what mine looks like, yeah. So yeah, you can see my amendment down there at the bottom. It just allows for if both the police supervisor and the state's attorney agree that it's in the best interest of the law enforcement for their safety that they can still enter without notice. So that is my amendment, and I move my amendment.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Were you going to say something, Delegate?
Yes, I apologize. I don't have this. Was it sent to my public email?
Yes. So take a look at the email that you received, the Zoom link for this meeting.
Oh, okay.
Attached. If you can't find it, let me know.
Oh, I put that in my folder somewhere. Can you just resend it?
I just resend it to you. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
So Delegate Erican, explain that one more time, please.
It just allows that in a circumstance where the safety of the officers requires no notice, that if they do believe that they have justification for that, the officer can no longer just do it themselves. They have to get in writing by the supervisor of the police officer, and the state's attorney has to sign off on it. That's before they go to the judge. Still, the judge is involved, but this is prior to it. That's on the application, in the application process for no notice.
Okay,
Warrant.
Matt, can I ask you to, that was a lovely explanation, but Matt, do you want to explain it?
Sure, it just also requires the police supervisor and state's attorney sign off on a search
Right.
warrant.
1 second.
So she explained it.
Okay. Oh, I see Miss Hughes has joined us. Okay, so that has been moved and seconded. Is there any further conversation or discussion on the amendment? And I am scrolling through, just I can't see everybody in a big grid because the document's up, so. Delegate Moon, did you have a question? You put something in the chat.
No, I think I got it answered. I just wanted to make sure that this is extra process it's putting in, not less. And I think.
Yes.
Correct.
Currently, the officer, I believe, can apply themselves. And
Got it.
this would
Okay. Great.
ask the officer to go to their superior and to the state's attorney first. So.
All right, let's roll.
Okay, I will call the roll call. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Oh,
We can't hear you.
yes.
yes. Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas. Is she with us?
No, we've called her a bunch of times. She's not answering. I'm not sure what happened. She
Okay,
knows about this, so I'm hoping that she's okay.
okay. Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham,
Yes.
and that amendment passes as favorable. Okay, the speaker has an amendment above it that I skipped. Matt, did you want to go over that while I try to figure out how to?
Sure. So this was the section that returned Baltimore City to the city. I understand that this is going to be moved in another piece of legislation. So the speaker is offering the amendment to just strike it from this bill.
Oh, thank you. Alex just told me how to make it smaller so I can see everybody. That worked. That's so much better. Thank you.
Move favorable.
Second. Any discussion? Okay, Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson? He's saying yes. Delegate Erican?
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett?
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis?
Yes.
Delegate Griffith?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate McComas? Delegate Moon?
Yes.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
And Delegate Sham?
Yes.
Okay, so we will take that up in another piece of legislation. Okay, turn the page to page 6. And the speaker has another amendment here related to no-knocks.
Sure. So this one goes from page 6 to page 7. So what this does is it provides for a bit more information that needs to be provided in a no-knock search warrant. A description of the clear and convincing evidence in support of the application, and a number of other things that you see there from A through F after line 6 on page 6. It also, for warrants generally, requires them to be reissued after a 7-day period, so they become void after 7 days. If you move on to page 7, you can see at the top of the page there, the officer must be clearly identified as a police officer when executing a warrant. The officer must use a body camera. And if it is not a no-knock warrant, then the officer must give 30 seconds notice to occupants before attempting to enter the residence. absent exigent circumstances. And then also, it also clarifies there that a police officer may not use flashbangs, stun guns, or distractions, or any other military style devices when executing a search warrant. Once again, absent exigent circumstances. And
Okay, I'll move that amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Can you just give us 1 sec?
Yes, Doug Anderson?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, finally. Whew. All right, I don't have any problems with the amendment, but I wanted to ask the chairman, is he on, by the way?
No.
Clippinger? No.
Okay. I had a question I posed earlier, and that is the last thing that was discussed is absent exigent circumstances. Currently, the way the bill is going to work, and the whole point of the bill was to ensure that we take precautions against officers, breaking into people's homes, surprising people, having shootouts, or whatever. And so we're crafting this part of the amendment to kind of say no knock warrants, or no knock warrants are not, we're not interested in no knock warrants. However, the way a police officer gets a warrant is that he develops probable cause to believe a crime is being committed or a crime is about to be committed. And he'll take that information already today, even without this bill, to his supervising sergeant or whoever is in control of his unit. They'll agree, disagree. If they agree, then they go see a judge. And the judge has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that this warrant is should be signed and executed. And under this bill, the same thing's going to happen. But the exigency that we're putting in, or absent exigent circumstances, then allows the officer, now he's got the warrant, and he approaches the place where he's to serve the warrant. And let's say somebody fires a shot from the house. Clearly, to me, that might be exigent circumstance where if they choose, they could go straight in. But officers have the way, or have sometimes the ability, to create what they feel are exigent circumstances. For instance, if the officer walks up to the door, knocks on the door, and he sees somebody at the side window peek out, and they notice it's a police officer, and they don't answer the door, he may consider that an exigent circumstance to break down the door. And my concern, as I said yesterday while I was I guess I was talking to Alex yesterday afternoon, that we ought to have somewhere in the bill what we think an exigent circumstance is, or there should be somewhere in the law that describes it to our satisfaction, so that we don't go back to exactly the situation we're trying to prevent.
so are you offering to try and do some definitional section, or?
Well, I'm putting this out to the committee to get a feeling as to what the subcommittee thinks. In other words, when we put in the wording exigent circumstances, I think we're just basically returning the power to the detective or to the executing officer, the ability to make his own or her own
Sure.
determination as to what the circumstances are. It might be,
Sure, Delegate.
they saw somebody running. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't have any cases right in front of me, but I believe this is, in Supreme Court jurisprudence. And I think that we might be able to get you something that may allay some of your concerns.
Okay,
On this.
either allaying the concerns or taking out the words absent exigent circumstances. Because if we know ahead of time it's going to be an exigent circumstance, then we already built into the bill that before they even go to the judge, they've got to get the permission of, or the approval of, the supervisor in the police department and the state's attorney. And then a judge can sign a warrant for no knock. But if it's not a no knock warrant, we're just saying it's a no knock warrant unless the police officer makes a determination that exigent circumstances exist. So I'm either saying take that discretion away from the police officer or define it to the point that we're satisfied that it won't be abused.
Delegate Anderson, can I just restate what you're saying to make sure I understand what you're saying?
Sure.
Thank you. Are you saying that basically in this legislation, if it's an exigent circumstance, we're permitting officers to get a no knock? So therefore, in this section, we do not need to state exigent circumstances? Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. In other words, we're saying that if we want to give an officer a no-knock warrant, he's got to go through these steps. Talk to the supervisor, talk to the state's attorney, then get the judge to approve it. But if it's not a no-knock warrant, he gets the judge to approve it, doesn't go through all these steps. But with the language as it exists, we're saying once he gets there and he determines that an exigent circumstance exists that wasn't contemplated before he went to the judge, then it's up to him to make the determination. This is exactly what they were doing when we created the definition of what a no-knock warrant should be.
So, Vice Chair, can I just add, I just want to underscore what Matt has said, and Delegate Anderson, we're happy to get you the case law, but the Supreme Court actually provides some definitional direction on what an exigent circumstance is. And we're happy to provide that information, and you guys can take a look at it and see if that's something that you want to change. But I do think that in, the speaker's whole sort of concept here around trying to provide some belt and suspenders around the entire warrant application process builds on the work of the work group, right, that ban no knocks, but understanding the fact that there are occasionally some instances where in the interest of public safety, there's an urgent matter that you may need, that a police officer may need to respond to quickly. So we're trying to sort of balance here the need to respond quickly to a potentially significant criminal situation with the desire to, not allow, a similar situation to Breonna Taylor, for instance, to happen. So we can get you that Supreme Court case law. I think Claire's looking for it right now, so we'll provide that to you.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. If I might. So we've changed the amount of time from 15 days to 17 days that a warrant is valid. And I spoke with my district, at least. We have part-time SWAT. We don't have a full-time SWAT team. So if, for example, my SWAT team was currently working a case, it involves a lot of prep. We have a location where they prep for entries. They usually try to set it up in the same manner of the location to make sure that they are going to the right room in the right location, and they will do this training in advance of going to places. If they are already working a case and then a warrant comes in for a second case, it's going to be almost impossible for them to prep for two different warrants at the exact same time. And according to them, it's already difficult for them to prepare within the 15 days that's allotted. So we're, I think, highly risking our SWAT team not being as prepared as they would like to be for an entry, which I think, especially in the case that was just referenced, the Breonna Taylor case, we could see more of those because the police officers aren't prepared as well as they could be if they don't have enough time to prepare. And I'm just personally confused about what is the big difference between 15 days and 7 days. I don't understand where the problem is coming from that. because that's just time for my team to prepare so that they don't have collateral damage and that they don't get it messed up. If people are rushing, especially if the people that are rushing are wearing tactical gear, SWAT outfits, helmets, and AR-15s, the more time to prep feels like better to me, at least.
Delegate.
I'm sorry, and this is responsive maybe to that last comment. Can we just clarify here that process on the screen for application of a no-knock warrant? The original bill was supposed to say that no-knock warrants were to be minimized, not used frequently. And I think the original bill said we were changing the law so that it could only be used if there was a life at stake. And it couldn't be like, oh, you're throwing away evidence or something like that. Is that application process that you're describing there, the factors you have to point out, it's still the case that it has to be for a life at stake?
So it does say the life or safety of executing officer or another person may be endangered. It's up on the top of page 6. There, lines 5 and 6. And then the application for a no-knock warrant has to have that extra information. And then going back to Delegate Erickson's question, I think on the flip side, I think the idea behind reducing it from 15 to 7 days is that, after a certain number of days, the information that was used to actually get the warrant approved becomes stale. And so the idea would be that, no longer than 7 days, you would need to have a warrant reissued and do the research to understand whether or not, any more information has come to light or any other circumstances have changed.
Yeah, I would just say that the issue of a warrant going stale is something that that the defenders and the defense attorneys use to throw out evidence. So wouldn't this put them in a situation where now they can literally never use that argument ever again, because it'll never be stale if it's only 7 days old. So I would say we may be cutting off our nose to spite our face with this one.
Are there any other comments? Delegate Deborah Davis, did you want to say something? No? You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I'm holding the button. Oh, Delegate Erickson, we're removing the whole section on property for using a no-knock warrant for property. So it would have to be the life and safety of someone else who is endangered. So if the life and safety is endangered within that 7 days, it's probably not endangered in another 7 days in an exigency, in an emergency situation.
Sorry,
So-
my internet cut out there. I missed the first bit of what you said, Delegate.
We're not using no knocks for property to secure property anymore.
Oh, yeah, that my comment wasn't about that. Yeah. Oh, sorry, you're talking to Moon? I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking to you, but that's
Oh,
okay.
oh no, my issue was not with the property versus residence. My concern is just with limiting their ability to prepare to 7 days, because that's not enough time for the people in my district, at least. So,
But all you're preparing for is the life and safety of someone. If you don't save them in 7 days, I don't think you have a grounds for a no knock. If you don't.
oh, I understand what you're saying.
7
Okay,
days.
I
Yes.
understand what you're saying now. So the case in my head that I'm thinking of is like gun trafficking. So that's not a gun trafficker doesn't like all of a sudden not be a gun trafficker because it's day 8. It just may take longer to prepare to enter that home, especially if you have a part-time SWAT team like we do.
Are there any other comments? Okay, we're going to do a roll call on the speaker's amendment related to no knocks. Delegate Asbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
You're on mute.
you're on mute.
And I was just gonna say, and at some point, we can put in a definition of exigent circumstances as defined by the Supreme Court, right?
This bill still has to go through the Judiciary Committee. So if we decide we need to do something like that, we can add it then.
Yeah, okay. I'm just saying that in the discussion earlier, we said, well, how about, so Delegate Anderson, how about defining exigency as the Supreme Court has defined it in the past? Fine. So yes, my vote is yes.
Delegate Arakan,
No.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Oh.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas, Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham,
No.
and that passes 7-3. Moving on, we turn to the next page, page 7. Delegate Moon, well, you might have already been on page 7. After the no knock, Delegate Moon has an amendment that I believe we already approved conceptually. Moon, do you just want to discuss that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can't recall if we already adopted this one, but this was the one that it came off of a bill we heard from Delegate Wilson, and it just puts a little bit of modern standards into common police stops. So the officer would have to state the reason for a traffic stop, again, absent exigent circumstances. And it clarifies again and restates that residents have the right to video their interactions.
actually, I don't think the recording part was in it, so let's just do, I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
The recording part was in it because I remember asking Delegate Moon the question about the recording part. So I'm voting yes, but I think
okay,
he presented it to us the first time.
okay.
So we're just voting on A right now, not
No.
B?
We're voting on A and B,
Oh, so we're voting on both of them. Okay.
yes.
I thought you said ignored the second part. Okay.
Delegate Arakan,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas, Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham,
Yes.
and that passes. Okay, there was, Matt, do you want to explain, or there's an
Sure.
amendment? I don't know if we need to adopt that.
Sure, you can, I think you can adopt it with the next amendment too on the next page. The technical amendment there is just striking the old tuition waiver provision and replacing it with an amendment that's to be offered by Delegates Shetty and Arakan regarding some loan repayment programs, support programs.
Okay. Does either Delegates Shetty or Arakan want to speak on the amendment, or would you like Matt to review it for us?
I'm happy to go over it.
Okay. They said go for it.
Okay. So yeah, so you see that first piece there back on page 6 going, or excuse me, 7 going on to page 8, striking the old provision. And so now what the amendment does, and it's quite long, you'll see, it moves from page 8 to page 10, I believe, but it establishes a loan assistance repayment program for police officers in the Office of Student Financial Assistance at MHEC to repay higher education loans for officers who received an undergraduate degree in criminology, criminal law, criminal justice from a public institution. And the individual has worked as a police officer in the state for at least 2 years. There will be an appropriation of 1.5 million tied to this for the program. And the amount of the awards is going to be determined by regulation adopted by MHEC. There is also intent language that you'll see and maybe adopt possibly later at the very end of the bill that talks about how the award regulation should be similar to the Janet L. Hoffman Loan Assistance Repayment Program. This all of this was kind of modeled off of programs that are already in existence. The amendment also establishes the police officer scholarship in the office, MPEC office, to award scholarships at 50% of tuition, including mandatory fees, but not room and board, for students to attend a public institution and earn a degree in all of those things that I just said. Current police officers will also be eligible for the scholarship. And to receive the scholarship, the student would have to sign a letter of intent to work as a police officer for 5 years during the 8-year period after graduation. This is similar to the prior thing, and it's also going to be the same for current police officers. If the student does not fulfill the obligation, then they'll have to repay the funds to the commission, and the program is going to be funded at $8.5 million. But of that $8.5 million, $2.5 million would be used for current police officers, and $6 million would be those intending to become police officers. There are also a number of other reporting requirements associated with this. So in a nutshell, that's what the amendment does.
Thank you. And we worked with appropriations on this, is that right? Okay. I see both.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I move the amendment.
Second.
Second.
And I want to thank Delegate Anderson for his initial idea about the tuition exemption in the work group, and thank Delegates Shetty and Erican for all your ideas in working this out.
And Delegate Ben Barnes, who helped us.
Yes. So thank you. We appreciate that. So is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas, Delegate Moon.
Yes.
Why every time you vote, you sound so just not enthusiastic?
I know.
Yes. Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham.
Yes.
Thank you. And that passes. Okay, moving on to page 12. There's another couple of technical amendments on page 12 and 14. I'm just looking, Matt, to see if we can do these. And then there's a speaker amendment related to the commission, if we can do these all as one. Or?
Yeah, so certainly 12 is obviously just put in there just to make a cross-reference on page 12, the technical amendment there. Page 14, all of this shows up, and Claire can give a little more detail if anybody wants it. All of this is struck because it goes into other provisions later on. And on page 14, around lines 21 and 22, this takes the implicit bias test there and makes it subject to the availability of implicit bias testing standards that are generally accepted by experts in the field of police psychology.
So I move the amendments.
Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas, Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham.
Yes.
Thank you, and that passes as well. You're on a roll, people. Okay. If we turn the page, we have another technical amendment. And then we have, if you keep moving along to page 16, Delegate Lopez has an amendment. So Delegate Lopez, would you like to discuss your amendment or would you like?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, can you scroll to it though? I don't. Once a complaint is made against an officer and internal affairs starts to investigate, a chief has to decide what they're going to do. So this puts some guardrails and some standards onto what happens. We have, oh, wrong one. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so basically, if you are a law enforcement officer and you're trying to get hired into a new agency, you have to be transparent about your disciplinary record. So that means unsustained complaints. That means sustained complaints. If there is any like disciplinary action outside of that, that needs to be provided to your new employer. And so that's what this amendment does.
Thank you. And Matt, could you tell us what this technical amendment on page 15?
Sure. Yes, I apologize, Madam Chair. I should have suggested we take this with the last one. The one on page 15 through 16 references back to some of the stuff that was moved from pages 12 and 14. So that's just kind of putting some stuff back also and weaving that into an already existing section.
Okay, so
it's totally technical.
okay. So I am going to move them both together unless somebody has a problem with that. Delegate Anderson.
You're on mute, man.
Delegate Lopez, you're saying that the officer is going to be voluntarily required to do this, or will the Maryland Police Training Standards Commission somehow verify this?
I think you have to provide your full employment history so that Maryland State Police can get those records.
The Maryland State Police Training and
And you're
Standards Commission.
authorizing, yeah, and you're authorizing the previous employer to
Disclose.
You're authorizing your previous employer to release those records. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback. I don't know if I'm talking over someone.
If I may, it's as a condition of hiring, the hiring agency would be able to receive the personnel and disciplinary records of the officer that they are hiring. This would apply to in-state transfers or transfers coming from out of state as well.
I have a question.
Delegate Erican.
Thank you. Doesn't the full personnel file include the disciplinary record? Why are we saying both terms?
It's just for clarity's sake.
Any other, Delegate Anderson, is your hand still up or is that from before? It's okay. Any other discussion?
Move favorable.
Second.
Okie dokie. So we're gonna do the technical amendment and this in one. Okay, folks? Okay, Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas, Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Shan.
Yes.
And both of those pass. Okay. Moving right along to page 21. So we have a couple things all on one page. So the first, we actually already moved, and that was Delegate Shetty's body cam amendment. So we actually already moved that. Does anyone want to discuss that? I don't think we need to, but alrighty. Delegate Moon. This is yours about you cannot negotiate for disciplinary actions.
Body cam policies. We may have already adopted this one, but just to repeat what this one does, the bill has introduced preempted bargaining, local bargaining on discipline, and this adds body cam use to that, so that we don't have people creating local patchworks while we get our statewide rules set up.
And I think we did move that already. So you're just seeing it in the bill, thanks to Claire. So moving down below, there is a technical amendment. There's two back-to-back technical amendments.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The first one is, you'll see they're striking independent investigative agency. That's just technical because it's being moved to another section in the bill, just for clarity's sake. Same with the line 26 and 27 on page 22. That's just being moved elsewhere to clarify with and work with another amendment that's going on here. So totally technical.
Okay, so I'm just going to move both of those technical amendments. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so those have been moved. Thank you, everyone. Now, Delegate Moon has an amendment on page 22.
So the bill as introduced had a military equipment provision in it, but I think it just included armored vehicles. And so we are putting in a more expansive prohibition on receipt of surplus federal military equipment. It's actually split. This amendment is split. You see part of it here on page 22. And then it continues on page 26. 22 has definitions that continue onto page 26, where you'll see the list of equipment. And you should recognize this. We've had this list debated in previous bills. And I will also point out that the Obama administration had suspended this military equipment program, and their list, I think, was more expansive than the one here. So I think this is a very reasonable list to exclude. I would move the amendment.
Sorry, is this, which one, how far does this amendment go? Because I see Moon, technical, Davis, what are we working? We're just working on Moon's a little bit?
Right. Yeah, so right now we are on page 22, but it references.
Page 26.
Right. It references his amendment on page 26. Do you see that, Delegate Erican?
Oh yeah, I understand. This is about the, and this part still confuses me because I don't, so we're just banning the purchase of surplus stuff, but they can still buy it brand new.
Hey,
there's a federal surplus military equipment program. It's been on and off. During the Obama administration, it was off, and then during the Trump administration, they turned it back on. And so this amendment seeks to put back some of the equipment bans. In particular was these armored or weaponized vehicles, and then some of the more destructive devices that are inappropriate for use in, the civilian world.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, so no one's buying those things. So
so let's do this. Let's move, I'm going to move Moon's amendment on page 22 And I'm going to move forward to page 26. We will come back to everything in between. I'm going to move them together since we're about to have a discussion on everything together. So I'm moving
Okay.
on page 22 and page 26. Moon's amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so now we have a conversation about it.
Okay, so as I understand it from talking with the officers, no one is obviously buying weaponized aircraft, drone, or vehicles. They do buy armored things. That's what SWAT has when they roll up to like an active shooter. They are inside that. In fact, an armored vehicle in Howard County just saved a police officer's life not even a month ago when someone shot right at his head and the armored vehicle stopped the bullet. So we would definitely have a dead citizen on our hands if we didn't have armored vehicles. So I'm just not sure what the goal is. You're not going to be able to stop our SWAT teams from buying things to protect them. So we're just going to have to buy them at a more expensive price. That's the goal.
I spoke to Howard County during the work group, actually, and this was not on their list of things that they needed. They did provide me with some things that they thought they needed, and they're not on this list. So I'm comfortable with this list. Delegate McComas, you're on mute. You're still on mute. McComas.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. We have two installations in Harford County, are probably very nice terrorist targets, APG and Edgewood. Edgewood actually does a lot of fentanyl research, just for FYI. Okay, we had a horrible instance a long time ago across the Hayden Bridge, Frank Green. Okay, it was a big incident. There wasn't interoperability of the radios. The bottom line I am saying is Harford County, the Susquehanna River with the Hayden Bridge were just a wonderful terrorist activity, a terrorist target. I think this is absolutely absurd to try to limit what law enforcement may need in case there's a really serious incident. So we don't have a major military base there, but we have two of the premier technical and training and chemical places in the country. And so I just think this is not necessary. We have no indication that there is a problem. I do not think we tie people's hands when there's an emergency. An emergency happens quickly, and they won't be convening the Maryland General Assembly to undo something. I think Delegate Moon, I think just, this is crazy. That's all I can say. And there's no indication that there is a problem. This is something looking for a solution, that there is no problem. A solution looking for a problem. There is no problem. And I vehemently object to this. I just think this is absurd.
Delegate Griffith and then Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate Moon, is a Brinks truck militarized or armored?
Brinks truck is likely not the equipment in a federal surplus military transfer.
I'm just saying it's armored. So under this, so are there any circumstances where you feel law enforcement would need an armored vehicle? Any at all?
Look, here's the thing you need to understand. There's obviously a debate to be had on the appropriateness of bringing military vehicles into civilian use.
I'm not saying military, I'm saying armored.
I understand. But that's been part of the appearance of having an occupying force in civilian, for protest, things like that, crowd control. It's been a hotly debated topic. I would say the sky did not fall during the Obama years when these transfers were restricted. And if you look back to the original executive order that started to limit these weapons and equipment transfers, part of their concern was this was being treated like toys, basically, that were being handed over to local departments for fun, with no clear guidelines indicating that the departments even knew how to use them, knew how to safely use them, had any training or maintenance regimens ready to make sure that these were being deployed safely and in concert with practices. So they put the brakes on it. And I think that's entirely fair given where we are in this conversation.
I'm not trying to press. I just want to, can you think of any situation where law enforcement would need an armored vehicle?
Yeah, but you know what? They acquire it then themselves through the normal procurement process, and then there's a little bit more oversight. And then they have to, it's sort of like zero-based budgeting. They're going to justify why they need it and make sure it's
so a small municipality who has a limited budget, who has a chance to purchase a used, say the town of Bel Air has a chance to purchase a used armored vehicle from the Hartford County Sheriff's Office at a much reduced rate to allow them to afford it. Would that be a reasonable accommodation for a small municipality?
On the other hand, I took a look at some of the equipment actually acquired by local departments recently. There seemed to be a strangely large number of MRAPs coming into local departments. The College Park Police Department, I believe, picked up a large number of assault rifles from the military. Not sure what they're planning for with all of that cash. So
I'm just talking about
perfectly reasonable questions.
I'm very focused just on the armored vehicle, because my concern is this. Say the town of Bel Air or any small or rural or low financed municipality or county or jurisdiction has a situation where they need an armored vehicle and they don't have one. Their only alternative is to call in the National Guard. When we literally have military vehicles on the street to defend these situations. So having a non-militarized, purely armored vehicle at an affordable price for someone to use it in appropriate circumstances, or the National Guard. And we're not talking about militarized, and former Marine, I know the difference between militarized and armored. So, you know, militarized, no, we're not talking about aircraft. We're just talking about a vehicle for emergencies to prevent loss of life. Very narrow scope.
Was that did you have a question? Is that a question?
Well, I mean, so isn't that so?
Okay. Delegate Moon, if you have a response.
I understand the concern raised. They're entirely welcome to purchase certain things themselves, and then they'll probably make sure it's used, maintained, and trained properly. And you know what? A lot of us think that these toys have been over-acquired by local police departments, but put them too quickly into use without good cause. And so I think that's the pushback that we're seeing now. I don't know. I mean, no one's stopping these departments from getting them. What we want to stop is people just randomly acquiring all this equipment. Again, when you look at the weird stuff that local police departments have been picking up under the existing program, you have to wonder how much of this is just because it's there for free. And that's been the concern over the years.
And again, I'm all on board with, you know, everything else in here. It's just the armored vehicles. And again, I just don't want to see the National Guard on the streets. That's all. Thank you.
Hey, Delegate Erican and then Delegate McComas, and then we'll do a roll call.
So I just want to make sure I understand what destructive device means. Again, I know that's part of this. So are you saying that the AR-15s that they got are now no longer going to be, you can't even buy guns that are used? So they have to go buy brand new ones? They're the same guns.
They can use what they currently have.
Yeah, that's also, this is really just to what's being transferred. It's only restricting things you're getting for free from these federal military surplus transfer programs.
I get that. I'm just confused. Why in the world would we just tell every department in our state, you have to pay full price for a brand new weapon when you can get it for free? It's illogical. I know you don't like the way a PR plays out. I mean, Moon, get with me on this. I hear you, like in the scope of the public image, it doesn't look good, but we're talking about dollars and cents from some of our smallest districts. When there is a mass shooting, do you want them to show up with a 22? I mean, what are we talking about? No, they will show up with the same AR-15. The question is, how much did the citizens pay for that AR-15? Did they have to pay $800 like I did? Or did they get it for $35?
Well, let's get a definition of destructive device. So you're suggesting just AR-15 is included in a destructive device. Is that what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
I'm assuming that anything that can hurt somebody could be destructive. So, and he's the one that referenced the AR-15s that a local municipality just bought. So I'm assuming that he believes at least that his
I
definition
didn't say they
includes
bought
guns.
AR-15s.
It's basically a bomb. It's basically a bomb or a grenade or a flamethrower or a Molotov cocktail. I don't think AR-15 would be included in that definition.
Right. So let's just make sure we're all talking about the right thing. So,
Okay, so they will still be able to buy guns from the surplus.
yes.
Because I'm not sure Moon knows that or likes that.
No, you're pointing to the term destructive device.
Yeah.
I was just referencing College Park because, I think people are unaware of the sheer amount of equipment coming over from the federal military over to local police departments. And we have this image in our head of what this is being used for. But honestly, it's lots of police departments picking up all sorts of weird stuff for God knows what reason and what they're planning and how much, even the volume of it. Again, they can get all this stuff themselves, but because it's just being pumped for free, that's what's happening. So destructive device is, the reference there is from 4501 of the criminal law article. And it's, as counsel said, bomb, grenade, mine, shell, missile, flamethrower, poison gas, Molotov cocktail, pipe bomb, and petroleum-soaked ammonium nitrate. So I think
Delegate Shetty just put it in the chat.
None of these things are approved for use already. So, okay, that's fine. So I just last question is, if my one department tries to sell their armored device to another department, that's still fine because it's not coming from the surplus. So we're not messing with Bel Air getting a used one from somebody else. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Delegate McComas.
Quick question. A lot of times, maybe I watch too much TV, but flash bombs are used with a no-knock warrant. Are they considered a destructive device? I mean, they're not designed. They're designed to shake everybody up and be able to control the situation.
They are not.
All right. But I'm kind of curious. Have we seen a need for this? This definition of a destructive device, I mean, I know Tacoma Park is a nuclear-free zone, but I just kind of wondered why we're doing this.
I think Delegate Moon just
gave
a great explanation of why he believes we needed it and so why it's in the amendment. Is there any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll do a roll call. So this is on the definitions on page 22, and then the rest of the amendment on page 26 that the definitions refer to. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Arakan,
No.
Delegate Barton,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon, Delegate Moon,
Oh, yes, sorry.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
and Delegate Sham.
Point of clarity, may I ask a question now?
Go ahead.
Okay. So police departments can have these armored and weaponized devices, but not obtain them from a surplus program? Is that?
That's correct.
Yes. Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you. Amendment passes 7-4. Okay, moving on to page 23. So here we go. There's a technical amendment at the top, and then we're about to get into use of force. And Delegate Deborah Davis has the amendment related to use of force. Delegate Davis, do you wish to speak on this, or would you like council to speak on it?
unmute. I would like to speak on it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so this is the beginning of the lethal force section. The first thing we do is we define lethal force. We add special police to regular police officers. We describe what less than lethal force is and when it can be used. And that's it. Move favorable.
Second, is there any discussion? I think the amendment, well, I see Griffith's hand up. Griffith?
Sorry, I'm trying to unpack this a little bit here. I'm sorry.
I think we should walk through it.
Please.
Because this is a big amendment to the legislation. So, Matt, can you walk us through this, please?
Sure, and I just want to say that on page 23, the technical right up at the top, the 23, and also referencing back to 22, the definition of deadly forces is all kind of intertwined on the technical aspect. The amendment itself, beginning on page 23, it's after line 4 when there are no more, just adds a number of definitional sections, provisions. Some of those are rehashed from the bill themselves or itself. Going on to page 24, it says that after line 11, it says that a police officer may not use force against a person unless the force is necessary and proportional to. This replaces the provision that said that an officer may only use force that is objectively reasonable and appears to be necessary under the circumstances. So reading that along again is a police officer may not use force against a person unless the force is necessary and proportional to prevent an imminent threat of physical injury to a person or effectuate an arrest of a person who the officer has probable cause to believe has committed a crime, taking into consideration the seriousness of the alleged crime. It also goes on to talk about how a police officer may only use force after exhausting certain alternatives or until the use of force has achieved its purpose, and provides that an officer shall cease to use force once the person is under the control of the officer or is no longer a threat. It also provides certain circumstances under which a police officer may not use force against a person. Moving along, there's page 25 and 26. There are some other things that are stricken there and cross-referenced back, but those are more on the technical side. So it changes the use of force standard generally.
Thank you, Matt. Delegate Griffith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Delegate Davis, I got a couple questions. I'm trying to understand this as somebody who's had to previously work through the use of force continuum. What I'm trying to understand with the amendment here is, when we're talking about reasonable force or the force proportional. I'm trying to understand what that means. Proportional force.
Proportional force is the amount of force that's necessary to diffuse the situation. It means it's not excessive in relation to the direct and legitimate law enforcement objective.
Could you walk me through, would you mind please walking through a scenario of proportional force?
It'd probably be easier to walk you through a disproportional force because that's what we've been seeing most of. An officer arriving at a situation and immediately drawing his gun. just at a normal situation. Is that force proportional?
I mean, I don't know. I
No.
know the scenario and the circumstance. You know, I mean,
Abs-
if he hops out of his car and pulls his gun with nothing going on, that's clearly disproportionate. But to give me, I mean, that's an excessive example, clearly. But what I'm trying to unpack here, I'm not trying to push back on this. I'm just trying to understand it, because trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who has to follow the law, right? It's one thing to say how you're outside of the law, but we also want to know how people are inside the law. So, I mean, would you, I'm respectfully asking for an example of proportional force.
Why don't, it might be easier for you to tell me what your concern is.
Breaking the law. I don't want to break the law.
Okay.
So it's
you have
about,
a duty to de-escalate.
yes,
You have a duty to use only necessary force
correct.
and proportional. Once you decide that it's necessary, you can't shoot nobody with a cell phone in their hand. That's not proportional, do you
Sure.
think?
But
Or shoot somebody with Skittles in their hand. Is that
correct?
proportional?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But what would be proportional force?
The force that's necessary to relation means not excessive in relation to direct and legitimate enforcement objective, law enforcement objective. So establish what your law enforcement objective is, and then
Okay.
you decide, what is, what's your objective and what's the minimum amount of force that you need to obtain that legal, I keep going back to it, a legitimate law enforcement objective.
So, I mean, and what's the pivot point? You know, because obviously, lethal, deadly force is that force which causes death, substantial risk of death, or serious bodily harm, right? But my job, first and foremost, is try to defuse. And once I find out I can't, I have to, attempt to resolve other ways, right? With either, starting with my presence, followed by a verbal or lawful order, and then escalating through the attempt to physically apprehend or arrest and things of that nature, right? But at what point does that pivot? If I'm now in a situation where I'm trying to apprehend somebody and the person turns on me, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's no doubt that in your own defense, for your own life and safety, I don't think there'd be anyone in your force or any jury that would say that you don't have a right to protect yourself or someone else.
No,
And
no,
but only the force that's proportional.
And so how does that tie in with the next portion here? Totality of the circumstances.
Delegate Griffith, if I could just sort of maybe
Sure.
just to kind of explain more globally, because the amendment also continues on page 19 and these things sort of fit together, or sorry, 27, actual bill page 19, 27. I think what Delegate Davis globally is trying to do is establish that an officer in the death of someone or if someone is injured, a state's attorney can bring a criminal charge under use of force for murder, manslaughter, assault, or reckless endangerment. So it's establishing that there's a specific crime for a police officer in those circumstances, and someone could bring a civil suit. And so I think what Delegate Davis is doing is establishing the sort of parameters around which use of force can be considered for those purposes. And so she's added definitions of what precisely lethal force is considered, what a totality of the circumstances, and this would all be in the hands of a jury to make the final determination. She's trying to provide guidance, Delegate Davis, correct me if I'm wrong. She's trying to provide guidance to the jury in one of those instances of what an inappropriate use of force would be.
Okay. And what's the next piece here that I'm reading where it says the totality of the circumstance? What's that referring to?
What page are you on, Griffith?
I'm sorry, page
It's on
23.
23, bottom of
10.
23.
Yeah, 10. So,
I think that's the section that you'd be most appreciative of, because it includes all of the things that you see and hear at the time, all of it. So the judgment is based upon everything that's there, everything you knew when you made the decision.
and there's one more piece in here because I had a chance to cruise through this. There was one more piece in here that discussed a circumstance where there's a possibility of someone else being injured. I'm trying to find it.
Delegate Griffiths, it's on page 24, sort of middle of the page. A police officer does not use force against a person unless the force is necessary and proportional to prevent imminent threat of a physical injury to a person or effectuate an arrest, et cetera, et cetera.
I thought I read something there that limited. And Delegate Eric, do you mind if I loop Delegate Eric into this part real fast? Because it's something me and her discussed previously.
I see it's number 3.3 or 3.2 on that page 24.
3.2.
Look at number 3 and then go down to the second Roman numeral.
Intervene to prevent the term or terminate the use of force.
The use of force will cease if the officer determines that the force will no longer accomplish or is no longer reasonable and proportional to accomplish a legitimate law enforcement objective. Is that where you are?
No, below that.
Where? A 3-2?
Yeah. 3 Roman numeral 2. The use of lethal force presents no substantial risk of injury to a third person. That could be complicated.
Yeah, and so that's a scenario that's really, really difficult when I consider, trying to balance deadly force with a third person, and just a scenario that I was contemplating with that portion to say that I'm in a situation where, I'm dealing with a suspect and that suspect may have a gun on, say, a little kid, and somewhere beyond them, there may be a bystander. We obviously don't want bystanders injured in us trying to, protect others. How would a police officer navigate that impossible scenario under that provision in the amendment?
How would you do it now?
I don't know if this is legal. I'm just trying to think back to, me 20 years ago, or just me as a person, me as a dad. If I have a bad guy in front of me and I have a gun at my kid, right? My job is to do everything to save that kid's life. You know what I mean? And, I don't want to play chess, right? I'm not going to sacrifice, my bishop for your knight. You know what I mean? Like, if this person has bad intentions and get ready to take out my kid, and there happens to be somebody in the line of fire behind here, I'm going to do everything I can to protect my kid.
I think when you add your child, that's a little different. I mean, you're
or any child. You're
an officer of the law. You're an officer of the law, and you're making a decision on whether to save someone who's an imminent threat. I don't think that changes it.
Yeah, just to be clear, Delegate Griffith, I think the scenario that you're articulating is actually covered under 211, just above that. An officer may not use force against a person unless the force is necessary and proportional to prevent an imminent threat of physical injury to a person, not just the person. A person is any person. And
does that compete with the third party?
I don't think so. I think imminent threat is an imminent threat to any person, to a person, any person.
Okay.
Delegate McComas and then Delegate Arakan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess what concerns me is I've had a little bit of, I had a course once where they talked about people hear half of what is actually said and they see half of actually what happens. It's just the nature of the way we are. And I don't know if anybody's ever seen a fight. I actually did. I saw a fight in a courthouse once and ended up being a witness. I couldn't remember who struck the first punch. It erupted. And I mean, because I was there for something else. What I don't understand is, okay, police officers have all this training, which they do, but sometimes they mistake a plastic gun that's black and looks like a gun, and they see a little kid with it, and we all know what's happened. Little children have been shot because of it. They've said, oh, they don't sell black toy guns anymore, but sometimes there's still them around. And what concerns me is this is a wonderful checklist. I think it's marvelous. But when stuff goes down, it goes down so quickly, and the officer's adrenaline is just surging in their body. And this is the Monday morning quarterback stuff that we can all use. But the bottom line is that officer is on the front lines in a horrible situation. I don't think he has a crystal ball, and I think this is just going to make anybody who, nobody's going to want to deal with this, because there's no way that you can sit there and run through a checklist. You're on automatic. And hopefully the training kicks in and you do everything proportional, but you may not, just because of the circumstances, because you don't know what to expect. And I think this is just really, tying the hands of the police. And yes, it might save one or two people, but it also, on the other end, might cause several people to go down and die. So I just don't think you can choreograph this kind of stuff. You can't choreograph a fight. You can't necessarily choreograph. It's got to be what's reasonable under the circumstances. And you can't list all this stuff and go through a laundry list and say, okay, well, it was all proportional. So I just think this is the wrong way to go.
Vice Chair, if I could just add, just so the subcommittee is sort of operating from the same point of clarity. I think that this committee, the full committee, every year requires additional training of police officers that work in this state. I think what Delegate Davis is trying to do here is to articulate that, to Delegate Griffith's point, training should kick in, and that there should be training around what the proportional use in a particular incident should be, and that should not go overboard in these instances. And if it does go overboard, then this criminal statute and potential civil remedy would kick in. And so, just so everyone is clear, multiple members of the legislature and the House of Delegates put in bills every single year to add additional training that you guys ask police officers to be trained in, and to be prepared to not react just simply on instinct, but actually to have their training kick in so they are prepared for every eventuality. And so I think here what Delegate Davis is trying to do is to ensure that every police officer in the state of Maryland is prepared for all those eventualities, and uses the appropriate amount that the situation will dictate.
Delegate Arakan and then Delegate Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my first question, and maybe Matt can answer this on all of this new use of force language, is where is the intent mentioned? Is there a requirement that there needs to be intent to misuse this lethal force?
The only requirement is that it be proportional to accomplish the objective.
No. I mean, like, If somebody
Right, there
runs
is
the.
no intent that's required. It's, an officer has to use proportional force. That's it.
So we're creating a new crime here for only police officers. And they don't actually have to intend to hurt someone for them to be found guilty of it.
I don't think it's technically a new crime. It's that if you violate the statute, then you can be charged with, if you're looking on page 27 after line 9, if you violate the use of lethal force statute and it results in death, you may be charged with manslaughter or murder. And then if it does not result in death, you can be charged with reckless endangerment or assault. And it cross-references each of those crimes in the criminal law article.
Is that not already true? People can already be, officers are already charged for this kind of stuff if they do this, as we've seen. Why are we rehashing that bit if it's already, I mean, these are crimes already. So if we're not creating a new use of force crime, what is the purpose of all the stuff on 27?
Right. It's as Alex did say, I mean, it's establishing the use of force, the necessary force, the appropriate amount of force, and also just cross-referencing and making sure.
Yeah, that's all the earlier stuff.
There are criminal and civil remedies that may follow as a result of a violation of the use of force statute, which is new to the state.
And okay, all right, and there's no prescribed, I don't see any actual penalties in here.
Those would go along with the criminal law article that's cross-referenced.
Okay. The already established penalties for the already established. Okay.
Correct. Correct. You
All
can
right.
see the language that's struck on above page 27. There was some old language in there that set aside, 10 years and 5 years. But these parallel what it would be under Title II, Subtitle II, and Title III, Subtitle II.
Okay, thanks, Matt. I'm also a little worried about the way we've defined totality of circumstances. That already exists in case law. It probably doesn't need to be defined in a different way. And it looks like we're including or could have been ascertained. So we're asking them to be responsible for information that they don't actually have because we think that they could have figured it out, but they didn't. So they didn't have the information. For example, if police officers asked if he heard someone say something, other people that may have been present may have heard it. He may not have. Under that situation, would it been he could have ascertained it?
So again, I just want to point out, I just want to underscore that this is based on the fact pattern presented to a jury in either a criminal case or in a civil case. And I mean, totality of circumstances, I think Delegate Davis to clarify, but her amendment, her language here is based on sort of case law that exists right now, that she spent the summer sort of researching what the most appropriate definition is.
Yeah, I think I'm just disagreeing that this is the appropriate definition. I don't think that that's the right definition for totality of circumstances. Totality of circumstances should be, kind of a reasonable person standard. And in here, it's elevating it to a standard where the person could have known something and they're going to be penalized for something that they could have known.
Well, totality of circumstances and reasonable person are two completely different things.
I'm talking about the standard to look at the totality of circumstances. So, but we're changing that and we're saying that the person could have known something. That's definitely not what the case law says about totality of circumstances. I would be shocked if any judge ruled anything even remotely like that, even ones that are hanging from the other side of the tree from me. I don't.
So it would be a jury, like Alex said, based on the fact pattern. And if you keep reading, it says, or that could have been ascertained by the police officer through visual observation, touch, or audible mechanisms under the circumstances confronting the police officer leading up to and at the time of the use of force, including, and then it goes on. So it's everything that the officer is observing. It's everything that's happening. So it's not him stopping to question someone like you suggested and all the other things. It's what's actually happening and what he should have ascertained. And I think I just want to underscore actually what Alex said. Every year we have use of force bills that come through here. We have seen a national movement of which Maryland is not, excluded from, where we are here because of this. We are here, quite frankly, because of what Delegate McComas says, because the automatic reaction of some officers is to just shoot, it is to just use their gun. What we want to happen, and what Delegate Davis has spent the interim working on, is so that when officers are trained in the use of force, their automatic reaction won't be to use their gun. It would be to go through these things. So I think to spin this in a sarcastic manner and say, we're in the middle of a fight, we're choreographing a fight, and we're going to go through a checklist. That's not what's going to happen. The officer is going to be so trained, and because it's what all of the departments are doing, it's just going to go through their head like this. So let's not put a spin on it that, that this is a horrible thing that we're doing here. We're here for a reason. We're here for a reason. We're here because there have been shootings, because that has been the automatic reaction of the officer.
Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that part of it at all. So my only concern is the other part of it. Just the language that we've used in the totality of circumstances definition, which if that's in another state, then, if it's working in another place, that would be great information to have for that little piece. But this is changing a lot more than just that. I mean, I agree with the training concept, and I'm hoping that we're able to train our officers so that they won't run afoul of this law. But I am still very concerned that we are going to include in totality of circumstances information that we believe they should have ascertained that they maybe did not. That's very concerning to me.
So we are going to I'm going to put a pin in this. We're going to do a roll call. Unless, McComas, do you have a question that you would like to ask?
Yeah, I have a question and a comment. Question is the choreographing of a fight did not come by me. It came by speaking to a chief of police, was a former person that worked in the Maryland State Police and is currently a chief of police. Okay. And has had probably over 30 years of law enforcement. So I just, it's me. Okay. This is my suggestion. I'm going to say, if we pass this bill, I think we should have another hearing on the whole bill, because honestly, I'm not sure that none of us, the only one that's in law enforcement is Delegate Griffith that on our panel. And I mean, I respect the great work that Delegate Davis has done. She's done a wonderful, wonderful work. But the point is that we need some experts to look at this, experts that are in the field. Now, everybody can say we're the lawmakers, but lawmakers don't have the background or the experience that we could benefit from a public hearing on this. So that's all I'll say. And I'll be quiet.
So I will just reiterate for folks, particularly folks listening in, we had a work group that met for over 30 hours that worked on this. We had then from there, it went into this public safety subcommittee. There have been lots of conversations online and offline with advocates on all sides of the issue, all interested parties. At this juncture, so what we're going to do is move all in once the technical amendment on page 23, Delegate Davis's use of force amendment, page 23 to 27. So that will include the definitions, the use of force statute, and the criminal portion. So we're going to do that all in once. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
No.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham,
No.
and that passes 7-4. Okay. Next. Everyone could take a look at page 28. Well, there's a technical amendment that begins on page 28, continues on page 29 to page 30, 31, and then,
Madam Chair,
yes.
back on page 27, there was one that started at the bottom. with
Oh,
Moon's-
I missed
Delegate
that.
Moon's name. That was the House bill. I believe this is House Bill 88, General.
Oh, thank you. And we actually, thank you for bringing that to my attention. If everyone recalls, is House Bill 88. I believe we did adopt this before. This is Delegate Ben Brooks's bill that addressed mental health issues of a police officer. But we, I believe, adopted this previously. Any discussion on that? Okay. Thank you, Matt. So if everybody turns to page 32, and the speaker has an amendment that begins with definitions. And Matt, do you want to go through this? I think all of the technical amendment was just taking all that out.
Yes, so pages 28 through page 31, that involves trial boards and administrative charging committees. You'll see a new section that's put back in with some modifications later on. And then would you like me to go ahead and talk about on page 32 as well, through 33?
Can I just do a quick, everyone, roll call on the technical amendment that is on pages 28 through 31. All in favor? Well, I'll move the amendment. Any second to the amendment?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the technical amendment passes. Okay, so now on to the speaker's amendment. Matt?
For pages 32 through 33, I noted this in here is not technical with a speaker amendment. This is actually replacing and putting back in the technical amendment that you approved, striking the independent investigative units on a prior page. The only thing that is different in this is the definitional sections on page 32. And also, Claire, correct me if I'm wrong. Under 3101C, we do define what a disciplinary matrix is. There was some discussion surrounding that. We also define what police misconduct is as well. So we're putting back in the independent investigative agency just for organization's sake, and also adding those couple of definitions.
Okay. Sorry, I'm distracted for a second. So we're going to move the speaker's amendment, which is all definitions, and then moving the law enforcement agency part, basically, that we removed elsewhere. Did I essentially say that right, Matt?
Yes.
Okay. So I move the speaker's amendment on page 32 and 33. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Aircan,
Sorry, can you tell me again what page you're on?
32, and it goes into 33. It's definitions and removes. We earlier in a technical amendment moved the language about an independent investigative agency. So we're putting it in this part of the bill as opposed to where we took it out from.
Yeah, this is mostly technical, isn't it? I mean,
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, yes.
Okay. Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Yes.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham.
Yes.
Okay, and that passes. So now Delegate Bartlett, would you like to speak on your amendment, which is on page 33 and 34 related to police accountability boards?
Matt is doing such a fine job. Can you go over it for me, Matt? I would appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. So as you saw in the bill as drafted, it mentioned police accountability boards. So this just adds a bit more detail to it. So beginning on page 33 through page 34, it requires that each county establish a police accountability board, requires them to hold quarterly meetings. It gives them the authority to appoint civilians to charging committees and trial boards. It authorizes them to also receive complaints of police misconduct to be forwarded along. And it does also review disciplinary matters of law enforcement agencies. The local legislative body actually will kind of determine the details of the police accountability board. And it also, on page 34, you can see there, and you'll see this in Delegate Bartlett's next amendment as well, sets forth kind of a uniform baseline for what a complaint must contain, which is the name of the officer, a description of the facts, some contact information for follow-up. However, it does say there that the information contained doesn't need to have any identifying information, and also that the complaint does not need to be sworn to. That is kind of paralleled under 3104 on page 34 as well. It's just with regard to filing at a police agency as well. So those are the amendments.
I move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Shoot.
Seeing no, just Delegate McComas, I see you. Delegate McComas.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned. I think that it is good that that the complaint be notarized or that it be sworn under penalties of perjury. I think that, in other words, this could be abused if there's no requirement to have any identifying information of the complainant, if the complainant wishes to remain anonymous, or that it not be notarized. I mean, this could be the, and I'm going to use this expression, this will be the defendant's get back at the police cop situation if we allow that. I mean, I think if you're going to file a complaint, you know, I can respect if someone wants to remain anonymous, but the failure to provide a notary that this is true and that there's some accountability as far as someone in the process of the trial of the organization, or what are we calling this? The accountability board is aware that this is a real person and who they are, so that this is not something that's just Joe drug dealer has decided to go after the cop that kind of knows what he's doing and didn't want to be arrested. In other words, somebody to make sure that the system here is not corrupted. I mean, somebody's got to know who the complainant is, and it should remain confidential if that's what they want. But is to make sure that it's a legitimate complaint and they're a legitimate person and they're not doing it for nefarious purposes. So I think that the complaint need not. No, it needs some what do I want to say? Some check and balance of credibility and legitimacy. And I think to just say, no, the complaint does not need, it can remain anonymous and does not need to be notarized or sworn under penalties of perjury is wrong.
I hear what you're saying, Delegate McComas. I will just say to you that there are times when an individual might want to remain anonymous. Well, first off, complaints and abusive complaints could occur now. So this would, if in your mind, this would not be creating a new problem. There could already be false complaints that could be happening now. But I would suggest that there are instances where an individual might want to remain anonymous because they might fear repercussion from the police officer or the police department. or they might think that, nothing might happen. So there are instances where they might want to remain anonymous. And then I'll also say, in terms of the notary, I mean, I have a hard time finding a notary. Like, it's a pain for me to run around and try to find a notary. And for someone who, might not have access to transportation, or they might not have a notary anywhere within 10 miles of where they are, that could actually be, quite frankly, a barrier for someone filing a complaint.
Madam Chair, to be notarized or sworn under penalties of perjury, it's an or. So we're saying, no, it doesn't have, I'm not saying notarized, but if you file a complaint or like, let's say let's say Delegate Moon and I get into a tussle and I kicked him and he said, okay, I'm going to get McComas. When he goes to the commissioner, he has to sign those allegations under penalties of perjury. When you get a protective order, it's under penalties of perjury. So, and there's no notary. So I think that's not correct as to the reading of what it says. And the other thing is, there would be a way that that basically the complainant could remain anonymous, but at least know that it's not John Jones, drug dealer, who has it in for Joe Blow, police officer. And I think that it can remain confidential or whatever, because whoever is running the accountability board can at least ensure that. And I think that this is the wrong road, and it will have unintended consequences. And that's what the Judiciary Committee is supposed to do, is look for unintended consequences and try to eliminate them.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Matt.
If I may, the law enforcement, we've heard from a number of folks, and, because the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights for certain, misconduct complaints required things to be sworn to. And that actually scared a lot of people off from actually having to go in and file and, swear to and everything. And just as an aside, it's 9501 of the criminal law article. Making false statements to police is already against the law and is punishable as a misdemeanor. So regardless of whether or not these complaints are being filed with a police accountability board or directly with the law enforcement agency, they're statements of misconduct to the law enforcement agency for investigation. So I believe it would fall under 9501, which it makes it a crime already. So to have the extra barriers of, notary and swearing to under penalties of perjury is not necessary.
Thank you. Delegate Moon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also just wanted to clarify here. Let me reiterate what Matt was just saying, since I recall the last LEOBR debate very well. And this issue of the notary was a much maligned feature of the LEOBR and has been thought to obstruct very legitimate complainants from being able to come forward. The other thing I would just respond to your comment is that this section of the bill, as I'm reading it, is about filing a complaint with a independent board that is not the police department itself. So the people filing here maybe didn't feel comfortable lodging their complaint directly with the police department that caused the problem. So they might have very good reasons for wanting to do that anonymously. And, and to the extent they're doing it anonymously, I think it's on them that it's a little bit more difficult to prove if they're not willing to do a little bit more than that. So I think it's an overblown concern. And so, Madam Chair, I would move the amendment.
Thank you. Delegate McComas, do you have a question?
Yeah, this would be for Mr. Jackson. The 9501 false statement, what section is that under? Is it a false statement to a police officer or about a police officer? Because this would be about a police officer, and it would be not to a police officer. It would be to the accountability board, which is I'm not sure is even covered. I mean, so I just asked that question of Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, some of these complaints would have to be ultimately, in some form or fashion forwarded to a law enforcement agency as well. And if the statement, report, or complaint is made with the intent to cause an investigation and cause generally deception, then it still applies.
Well, okay, just a quick question. Would it be all right if we just say that, you know, a false statement and just put it on the thing if you don't want to have, you know, put it under oath? You know, I don't think you need to have it notarized, but I think the person who's filing the complaint should know that this is serious and not just, you know, and put, you know, let everybody know what the rules of the road are right up front. I think that's a reasonable thing.
Thank you. Is there any other debate about this issue? Questions? Okay, seeing none. This is on the Delegate Bartlett's Police Accountability Board amendment. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
No.
Delegate Bartlett,
She's thumbs upping.
okay.
Yes, I couldn't find my mute button, sorry.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Sham.
Yes.
That passes 8-3. And colleagues, I apologize. We did not, I thought we did, vote on, if you could circle back to page 27, which is Ben Brooks's House Bill 88, which creates an employee assistance program providing access, confidential access to mental health services. And so I should say, and Delegate Moon, would you like to speak? You are chair of the criminal subcommittee, and I believe you discussed it. So could you just say what happened in your subcommittee with the bill?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not a controversial bill. It came in last year. We already voted for it. You probably voted for it. I think it was unanimous or near unanimous. It came back in this year, so it got cut short in the pandemic session last year. But all it does is has police departments offer voluntary support and counseling services after traumatic incidents. And there was no opposition. The departments have some type of service like this generally, so it restructures a little bit. It came into subcommittee and we moved it, so it's more properly housed in this bill. So I would move the amendment.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Delegate McComas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just Delegate Moon, I remember this bill has come in different forms through the years. And initially, it was peer-to-peer counseling right after a critical incident. And they did not want to create an immunity so that whatever was discussed after the incident would be confidential. Now, I assume that all of this is going to be confidential and it's all going to be under HIPAA, right? And cannot be subpoenaed by the lawyers, right? If there's a further incident.
Yeah, this has all been cleared. And if you look at line, is this, maybe it's to page 28, line, there's not line numbers on this, but near the top of page 28, you'll see that it's confidential mental health services. And so there shouldn't be any issue there.
Okay, so because I mean, I think that's really important for the police and for.
Yeah, and there was a wording change too, also to soften this a little bit. So I think it's good to go.
Okay, so we don't need to put anything that none of these records or people that are working with the particular officer can be subpoenaed in any criminal or civil lawsuit. Yeah.
No, and also to be clear, this is all voluntary, 100% voluntary.
Right, but it's confidential to the officer.
Confidential and voluntary.
Right. No. I understand that.
It says confidential in there. It's in there.
Right, knowing how lawyers are, they try to do a lot of stuff.
Okay, any other discussion on this amendment? Okay, we'll do, I don't need to do a roll call, I don't think. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendment passes. Okay, so we left off the very bottom of page 34 with the speaker's amendment, rolling into page 35, dealing with each county creating a charging committee. And Matt, do you want to discuss that?
Sure. So this is in a technical amendment in a prior page, you struck the stuff about charging committees. And this is the new replacement. It has been tweaked quite a bit, so just bear with me. So one of the biggest changes is that before the administrative charging committee, it just said generally administrative charging committee and didn't specify local or statewide. So what this section does, just as a overarching understanding, is it separates it out into each county must have a charging committee, and then there must be also a statewide charging committee. So beginning on the bottom of page 34 and moving to about the middle of page 35, that regards local county charging committees. So each county shall have one administrative charging committee, and the composition has been tweaked just a little bit. Has to be, moving on to page 35, it has to be the chair of the Police Accountability Board that you just adopted not too long ago, a designee of the public defender who's a resident of the county and not employed by OPD, and importantly is also not a party to any criminal matter or proceeding. Is the next member is a designee of the state's attorney, with similar requirements tied to that parallel with the OPD, a civilian that's appointed by the county's Police Accountability Board, and also the head attorney for the county. Moving on to statewide charging committees, we tried to follow a similar path as to local. First, you have a designee of the Attorney General's office who's not employed by the Attorney General, the state prosecutor, or the office of the U.S. Attorney. You have a designee of the Public Defender's office who's not employed by the Public Defender. You have a designee of the Governor's Legal Counsel, a civilian appointed by the Governor, and then a civilian that's appointed jointly by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. It was put in there that, and similar to how as drafted, that prior to serving on any charging committee, these individuals must be trained by MPTSC on policing matters. And similar to as drafted as well, that on completion of the investigation, the investigative file is forwarded, on completion of an investigation of a complaint against a police officer, the law enforcement agency who is doing the general investigation forwards everything to the charging committee. Moving on to page 36, the charging committee generally reviews the findings of the investigation and makes a determination that the police officer is subject to the investigation shall be administratively charged or not charged. If they are not charged, then the administrative charging committee can determine whether or not the complaint is unfounded or the officer is exonerated. But if the officer is charged, the administrative charging committee will determine the minimum disciplinary action that the chief of the law enforcement agency imposes. And those written opinions are forwarded to the chief and also are going to be forwarded to the complainant. There are some other requirements there about that the administrative charging committees must meet at least once per month and additionally as needed. And in order to maintain some sense of confidentiality, there is a provision on page 36, subsection H, that requires that an administrative charging committee member maintain confidentiality until the disposition of the matter. And in a nutshell, that's all.
Delegate Griffith, well, first I'll move the amendment. Thank you, Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Delegate Griffith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question on page 35 towards the bottom under C, where it says prior to serving as a member, the individual will receive training Can you talk about, do we have a sense of what that training would look like? How many hours? What it will cover? Things of that nature.
So the Police Training and Standards Commission is already required to, I believe, and Claire, please correct me if I'm wrong, is already required to adopt some training standards for civilians to serve on trial boards. So this is kind of getting at that and being a holistic approach. So everybody that serves on trial, on administrative charging committees, and then when we get further on in these amendments to trial boards, needs to have some sort of training that's done by MPTSC. So they already do kind of a civilian training, but exactly how that'll be tweaked under the bill, I can't speak to that.
Would that be something that comes back before our committee, or is it something that be handled completely by the commission?
That is something, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's something, going into next session, chair might ask MPTSC to come back and brief us on a bunch of things that they worked on and related to this, and we could see what they've been doing. But
So
approve the actual training.
just to be clear, to piggyback on what Matt said, in 2016, House Bill 1016 that Delegate Anderson worked on, required the citizen members of the trial board who were non-voting to go through an MPTSC training program. So the commission at that point was required to develop a training program.
Was that training program, did they contemplate this responsibility in that training program?
So I think this would be a new additional, right? You may have to make some tweaks to what the existing curriculum is. That's a question probably better directed at the commission, but they have an existing civilian training program for civilians that participate in the disciplinary process.
All right, thank you.
I have to add to that, Alex, though, that only one jurisdiction in the last 2 years has actually sent people to that program. And the commission makes a point of that. So I don't know why, but that's just a fact of Delegate Griffith.
And that was just recent. We just learned that, Delegate Anderson, during the,
right,
which was shocking, actually.
Well, mainly because officers these were training programs for people who were going to sit on trial boards. And the number of officers asking for trial boards has almost going down to zero. They almost are always taking the discipline that the chief or the sheriff or the superintendent offers because they don't want to go to trial boards.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands up, but what I will say is on page 36, number 3 at the top of the page, the very top, the first 3. So we had all previously voted on Delegate Moon's amendment that the chief cannot go below kind of the disciplinary matrix was the floor, the uniform disciplinary matrix. So I'm not sure that number 3 actually says that. So
Just about to say.
you were about to say that, Moon, Delegate Moon? Yeah, so I think, Claire, we might need to change that.
So Delegate Moon, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the spirit here that you guys are trying to capture is that if the officer is charged and the charging committee makes a determination of what the charge is, the charging committee would make a recommendation within the disciplinary matrix to the chief, and the chief could not go below that.
I was trying to guard against the because there was a lot of people saying we should just let the chiefs and sheriffs decide everything. And I was trying
Moon, she was just saying, what was your intent? What were you trying to do?
My intent was that they couldn't either ignore or go below the discipline. I wanted some guardrail there.
I think that's what I just said, but okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think, Claire, we just need to clarify that in that amendment, in that number. But so I'm going to do a roll call on the amendment with the understanding that we already approved that language actually previously. So if there's no further discussion, I will do a roll call on the speaker's amendment related to the charging committee.
I apologize.
Okay, go ahead, Delegate Sham.
On the bottom of page 35, letter C, regarding the administrative charging committees receiving training, does that include both the local and the state?
Yes, that's everybody.
That's everybody, okay.
Okay, any other comments? Okay. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
So much stuff. It's hard for me to decide. Sorry, guys. No.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shed,
Yes.
Delegate Sham,
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no.
okay. And that passes 7-4. At the bottom of page 36 is the amendment that I had related to the uniform disciplinary statewide matrix that we previously passed. So if we turn to page 37, the speaker has another amendment here where we are talking about trial boards and the creation and makeup of the trial boards should an officer not accept what was offered by the charging committee if the charging committee recommended discipline. Matt, do you want to walk us through this?
Exactly. Thanks for teeing that up. So 3107 says that, if the law enforcement officer requests a trial board and does not accept the discipline as offered by the chief, then the officer is entitled to a trial board. We put in a technical amendment that you all adopted a little bit earlier. You repealed a lot of this stuff, and this is where it's coming back, similar to the administrative charging committee, but with a bit more detail. As you can see, that we have made a clarification that small law enforcement agencies can use the trial boards of another law enforcement agencies by MOU. We specified that a trial board is composed of a judge, actively serving or retired on the administrative law judge side, or a retired district court or circuit court judge. It's a civilian that's going to be appointed by the local police not the local necessarily, but the police accountability board, and a police officer who is of equal rank to the police officer who is accused of the misconduct. Similar to the administrative charging committee, all trial board members, including the officer, will be trained in police procedures from the NPTSC. The trial board is to be open to the public, but there are some authorizations under subsection D, such as victim's identity, child witness, or confidential sources that they could possibly close the meeting. A trial board is allowed to administer oaths. These are just some specifying items. Can administer oaths. A police officer can be compelled to testify, produce records, and submit to a polygraph. And a complainant has the right to be notified of a trial board hearing. Also, within 30 days from the date of the issuance of the decision of the trial board,
I don't think I have any.
Erican, mute yourself. Thank you.
The The local agency is authorized, the officer is authorized to appeal the decision of the trial board to the local circuit court, or in the instance of a statewide, to the circuit court for Anne Arundel County. The appeal must be taken on the record, and a trial board decision that is not appealed, that is a final decision. So in a nutshell, that's the amendment.
Any discussion related to this? I can't imagine. No discussion. Okay, well, I'm sorry. I'll move the amendment. Did I do that? I'll move the amendment.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, is there any discussion? Delegate Anderson, thank you. Folks, we've been Zooming since March. It has been a year. Everybody should know what the little button is. Okay, Delegate Anderson.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could go over the part where we talked about the police officer having to take a polygraph? Matt, or?
Yes. It just says a police officer is subject to a trial board may be compelled to submit to a polygraph.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Delegate McComas?
Just for clarification, it's my understanding, polygraphs are used by the police department. You have to pass a polygraph to be a police officer. Internal Affairs uses it, but they're not used in courts, and they're not not allowed to be introduced as evidence because they're not really, quote, reliable. So I have a problem with that because this is kind of a judicial forum, the trial board, and to say we can make him submit to a polygraph. I mean, because when it's internal affairs and it's for getting the job, that's a little bit different. This is basically, if you want to keep your job, you're going to have to do it. But for this is a little different. So I have a problem with that.
So just so we're clear, this is in existing law right now, that a trial board can compel that a department can compel an officer to take a polygraph. So if in fact we did nothing with LEOBR, they could be compelled to take a polygraph.
Well, my question though is, am I hearing though that they're not doing trial boards anyway? That they're going with what the chief, the discipline of the chief?
No. So this whole amendment provides.
No, I understand. But now, when you say, aren't they? Isn't
there trial boards that are being?
There are trial boards right now, and the amendment provides, which is something that all the advocates sort of on our side are not particularly happy about, but the amendment provides that there will continue to be a trial board process. And Delegate McComas, as you know, being a practicing attorney, like there are certain, what I think the speaker is trying to do here is put certain sort of rules around what that adjudicatory process could look like.
Well, it was my impression that most people were taking what the, selecting what the chief wanted to do. And
that's the Senate bill.
Oh, okay. All right.
Any other discussion on this amendment? Delegate Arikan?
I just want to comment that even though I think polygraphs are allowed, they are not, the results are not admissible in hearings right now. So that I'm assuming this language changes that.
So they're not currently admissible in a criminal proceeding. Matt or Claire will have to correct me if that exists someplace else or how that works.
I believe so, but this polygraph portion only applies to administrative provisions, and it doesn't say that it has to be admitted for the trial board. It just says that they are allowed to submit or force submission to a polygraph.
the trial board can make somebody take a polygraph, but then they can't use the results?
No, in a criminal proceeding. So the trial board is a personnel proceeding.
Right.
So if the officer has a criminal case pending as well as a personnel case, the point here is that a polygraph can be compelled for the purpose of the personnel hearing, not admissible during the criminal hearing.
Okay, I think I understand that a little bit better. All right. That's my only question for now.
Delegate Moon, your hand was up. Is it down now? Okay, Delegate McComas.
Just real quick, this is not an area law I have any knowledge of, but my question is, all right, so the criminal hearing would be taken care of before the trial board, is that correct? Because it's
the criminal hearing would be a completely different process over here. We're strictly dealing with administrative personnel issues here.
right, but as a matter of usually wouldn't the officer not want to make any statements under oath until that criminal trial was resolved, because he could further incriminate himself. So
I believe in
this would be second.
practice. Yeah, I believe in practice, what happens is similar to what happens when there are criminal investigations of members of the General Assembly. The agency defers to the criminal investigation pending the outcome, and then the administrative hearing or administrative process would kick in.
After the criminal's resolved.
Right, by policy.
Delegate Moon.
Okay, now I do have a question. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just maybe this will benefit everyone. I just want to clarify that where in the process this polygraph would come into play would be that there's already been an investigation. There's already found to be misconduct. There's already been discipline recommended. The officer's likely already been talked to by investigators, and now they may choose to appeal. And so that comes with the risk that they're going to be asked to verify either by testimony records or polygraph, right? But that basically we're not skipping process. There's already been an investigation. And so it's sort of like you can appeal, but it comes with the risk of being required to provide more info.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Erican.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Okay, so I did ask some of the other advocates if the poly is currently ever used in administrative, and they're saying that it's not admissible even in an administrative hearing, not in civil, and not in criminal. So this would definitely be a change to that current law.
Claire, did you want to? I just saw you come off mute.
Yes. What is the question?
Did you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say something.
I mean,
okay.
if you have a question for me, I'll be glad to try and answer, but I wasn't trying to comment.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so it could be admissible in the trial board proceeding, and you're saying that would be new, Delegate Erican?
Yes,
Okay.
I just want to make sure that's the intent, is to make add a new piece of evidence that normally is not admissible. I think because it's not a super accurate tool. That's probably why it's not permissible in court.
Delegate Moon?
Oh, sorry, my hand's still up.
Okay. Any other discussion before I do a roll call on the speaker's amendment related to trial boards? Okay, Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
No.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes. I try to use my space bar, try to mix it up.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
and Delegate Sham.
Yes.
That passes 8-3. Folks, I do want to circle back because there was a tweak. My apologies. On page 36 to my amendment related to the disciplinary matrix that we previously approved. So the tweak is that if you look at the very bottom, 3106C, within 15 days after an administrative charging committee issues the charge against the officer, the chief shall offer the discipline to the officer. So essentially it's putting a 15-day window on the chief giving discipline to that officer. So we're ensuring that it's done in a timely manner and that these disciplinary matters don't sit on a chief's desk for a year, 18 months or more, which happens. So it's making it timely. So I'm going to move the amendment and we'll just do another roll call on it. So I'll move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Do you all want me to do this individually or can I do a yay, nay? Do you want me to do a roll call? Delegate Erican? No? Okay. All those in favor say yes. Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. All righty. Now we could turn to page 38. And Delegate Lopez, you have an amendment, and then Delegate Shetty has an amendment. So Delegate Lopez, do you want to go through that or would you like Matt to?
Sure, I'll give broad strokes and then pass it over to Matt when he's off the phone.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, so now that I can see what amendment we're talking about here. Hi, Matt. Yeah, so once a complaint is made, an investigation is beginning, the chief can make a determination about what to do with the officer that's under investigation. And so this provides some guidelines about what that is, the mays and the shalls, and then also provides the chief the ability to determine whether he or she is going to restrict the officer who's being investigated pay. So I'll give you a minute to look over what the list of all those things are.
Matt, do you have anything to add?
No, she summarized it very well.
Okay. So I will say that it does give the chief the discretion to suspend without pay for 30 days pending an investigation, administrative charging committee or criminal process if the officer is being charged with a felony, a misdemeanor committed in the performance of his duties, a misdemeanor related to domestic violence, a misdemeanor related to dishonesty or fraud. And then it gives the chief discretion to terminate employment for if there's an actual conviction of those things. So Delegate Griffith, well, I'm sorry. I'll move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Delegate Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My one big concern on this, and I never put it this way, but I'm gravely concerned about, is just from the perspective of fairness when it comes to one small portion of this is the suspension without pay. And when I try to consider this legislation or the amendments, I always try to put myself in the shoes of the individual. So say I'm an individual, a young officer with a wife and 2 young kids at home, and I've done nothing wrong, but I'm being investigated or being charged, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And obviously the opportunity to get if I'm cleared, I have the opportunity to go back and get back pay, but it doesn't help me in the here and now when I'm trying to feed my family and pay my bills. So I would really urge to at least not do nothing with the suspension, but just make it with pay because of the individual's due process and just the fairness. And I would be very grateful if we could consider just striking the without pay portion of the amendment.
Any comments?
I mean, I
Delegate
think, yeah, I think it should be the discretion of the chief and to give them a vehicle to intensify, you know, the suspension based on the details of the charges. So I know that we have had lots of conversations around increasing civilian oversight and the balance of that between the authorities of the chief. I think this is an opportunity to give the chiefs a little bit of discretion.
Well, I mean, I believe this gives the chiefs a great deal of discretion up and down. The big piece here is pending the investigation. So an individual who may not be able to afford to get through a 30-day suspension without their pay, without due process, you know, and, you know, everything else is to resolve the investigation, but the here and now of somebody being able to make it through the month without pay, without the fairness of due process, I just find that deeply concerning. And all I'm asking is just the suspension, the without pay portion, only that one small piece be struck from this amendment. That's all I'm requesting.
In response, you know, when I look at these laws or these bills that we're reviewing, I put myself in the place of people outside of law enforcement too, other people who would be in these types of situations where they might be charged with something and investigations might be pending in those cases. And if you're someone working a minimum wage job and you have to stop working because there's some type of investigation going on, you will not get paid. So I don't think it's, I think it should just be the discretion of the chief, and I'm sympathetic to the things that you're mentioning, but I just disagree.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Delegate Griffith.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, you disagree. I mean, what we're going for in this legislation, you know, the goal of this body is fairness, right? And it's
Oh, Delegate Anderson, can you mute yourself?
It's categorically unfair to take away somebody's pay pending due process. It's just categorically unfair. If we're going for fairness, that one small portion that I'm referring to is categorically unfair.
Delegate McComas.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to second Delegate Griffith's suggested amendment.
You're suggesting what he's suggesting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
Madam Chair, just I think we'd like a roll call vote on this.
I believe we're in the middle of an amendment.
Yeah, Delegate Arakan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to touch on another portion of it. On C of this section, it says the chief shall terminate the employment of an officer who's convicted of the following things or receives a PBJ.
Mm-hmm. So if you received a PBJ for a felony, a misdemeanor that you've done in the performance of your duties, a misdemeanor for a domestic violence crime, or something involving dishonesty. So you.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I know we talk about this a lot in our committee. Sometimes people take PBJs just even if they're innocent. I mean, we've heard that before. Is that correct? I mean, I
don't know that you would take a PBJ in a domestically related incident. I mean, if you feel like you were innocent of, you know, beating your significant other, I feel like you would try to go to bat and defend yourself, because that's like very serious.
I mean, normally that's what I would say, but normally we're on the other side of the table on this issue. And so I'm just a little bit confused. It feels like there's some cognitive dissonance in our committee right now, because normally I'm being told we shouldn't do we shouldn't punish people that take PBJs, because, sometimes those people are just trying to avoid all of the wretchedness of court. And so they're trying to, get the process over with faster. So I'm just confused why the body believes that in every other circumstance, PBJ people should be given more leeway, except for this case, then they're so guilty that they must be fired, like shall, right? That's not even a may, it's like shall. So there's no ability here for a chief to look at the totality of the circumstances in this part of the law. I'm just wondering why there's such a difference.
So I mean, I look at this as, if we're talking about C, the chief shall terminate, because I mean, these are police officers. You can't have a police officer, out on a PBJ for beating their significant other or for a DUI, but then going out on the street and arresting people for the exact same thing. I mean, that's kind of beyond ironic. I mean, that would be the subject of, parody on TV. So, I mean, I just think we have to hold them accountable the same way that they hold us accountable to the laws in that situation. That's my take on that.
All right.
Delegate McComas, and then I thought I saw Delegate McComas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what we're doing is we're saying that police officers are held to a much, much higher standard than the average citizen, and that they really don't have the constitutional rights that an average citizen has, and that we don't believe in second chances. I am sure that if someone, actually, we had a situation in Harford County where a very good detective killed himself because he and his wife got into a domestic incident, and he went out to the patrol car and blew his brains out. And he was an excellent detective. He testified for one of the bills in judiciary, and Louise Simmons, who was probably one of the best committee members we ever had and lots of trial experience, thought he was just a wonderful witness. And so there you go. I'm just saying that.
There you go. What?
Well, there you go. We're basically, this guy wasn't even charged. Okay. And so what we're saying is if you're charged and you get a PBJ, which is not a conviction, and as long as you adhere to all the terms of probation, you can expunge it later on. We're doing all this expungement for everybody else, but these guys are gonna lose their job. I mean, nobody's gonna want to be a police officer. So really what we ought to do is label this part of the bill we don't want to be police officer bill, or let's fund the police. Let's just get rid of the police, because
Is that an amendment? Is that an amendment? That's not an amendment.
Well, the amendment was to basically have it as a may, or take the shall out. Talk about the judges get so ticked with us because they don't want their discretion taken. Well, some of the police officers and some of the sheriffs are elected officials, and we're taking away their discretion. So I can't.
So sheriffs are elected. Police chiefs are appointed by county exec. They are not elected. And if you take,
right, but this applies to everybody.
You take a PBJ so that you will not have a guilty on your record. So you take the PBJ. So that's why the shall is there for those very serious cases of domestic violence, perjury, felony, a misdemeanor while you are on the job. So that's the whole gun trace task force was running around doing all this stuff. So that's why.
Well, that was because, Madam
we
Chair,
need
that was because they weren't supervised. Now that was a problem with the Baltimore City Police Department. I mean, they were bad guys, but nobody was tracking what they were doing. So that's a failure of the chain of command of the Baltimore City Police Department.
Delegate Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to point out again, when you look here, these are PBJs for many things where you don't want necessarily that person testifying in court. As I've mentioned in other hearings, we've had cases, officers, when their testimony is called into question because of character, many cases, more than just the one, suddenly get thrown out. So I think this is appropriate. And I'll also just point out, I just find this very ironic because I recall very recently members of the minority party telling us we need to deport all of the immigrants who had PBJs because that they were just as good as guilty. So it's an interesting turnabout here. So Madam Chair, I move the amendment.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I appreciate the passion. Delegate Erican.
I was trying to point out the same cognitive dissonance from you guys first. I guess we agree that the other side's, silly sometimes. We both agree on that.
Any further discussion? Delegate Lopez.
Up until all of that, I was willing to contemplate some amended language on 3108B to say with or without pay to make it consistent for the chief to have discretion down the board. But considering I'm suffering from cognitive dissonance, I'm not sure if I'm in the right mind to be offering amendments to my amendment. I'll leave that up to discussion.
So you were going to offer in B
to
allow the chief may, and take out the shall?
To say shall for an emergency suspension with or without pay. So the emergency suspension is a requirement, but the payment is the pay is at the discretion of the chief, just to make that consistent.
Delegate Griffith.
I mean, I will say, Delegate Lopez, despite the back and forth in this committee, hopefully it doesn't impact, our ability to make this a better bill, and I would be grateful for that change.
Delegate Erican.
Yeah, I think that's a good change. My concern wasn't with that part of the bill specifically, though. I was talking about the lower stuff, the PBJ part.
Okay, so Delegate Lopez has a friendly amendment to her own amendment to add an A to an emergency suspension with or without pay under this subsection, which may not exceed 30 days. Delegate Deborah Davis.
I have to lodge my objection to the friendly amendment to the amendment. We do it every day to people being arrested every day. They cannot go to their jobs. And with this amendment, what happens is that they can't work and they get paid. I think what happens is my son gets shot. He gets to keep getting paid. I get to pay his salary or her salary. And if it was me, I would be in jail and I would be losing work. We want fairness, we want equity. This doesn't give it.
Any other discussion? Okay, so I'm doing a roll call on the friendly amendment to Delegate Lopez's amendment on page 38. So to be clear, section 31008A2 would read an emergency suspension with or without pay under this subsection, which could not exceed 30 days. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson. Delegate Anderson. Are you thinking or do you hear me?
Yeah, here I am.
I don't think he hears you.
Delegate Arakan.
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett.
Quick question. I don't understand how this differs from that little section above it where we say pending and investigatory, and then we go to 2, emergency suspension. So A1 and A2, when we say with or without pay, why were we thinking, I mean, you all might have gone over this, I'm sorry if you did, but why are we saying with or without there, but we're not saying it at B as well? And it's not consistent.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, so I think under A, we're dealing with strictly an administrative matter here.
Okay.
And B and C are dealing chiefly with criminal charges or criminal convictions or a PBJ.
All right. And so the one that we're, is the one that we are doing the friendly amendment on A2, or is it B?
It's A2.
Okay. And what is an emergency suspension?
What I thought it was B.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I thought it was B2. B also.
I know. B2 is bad. Sorry.
So that's so which one? I'm not quite sure which one.
Yeah, maybe the question's for Delegate Lopez because I thought it was B, but maybe it's A2. I don't know.
I thought she said A2, but go ahead.
I was thinking keeping A2 because B, as you mentioned, it's the criminal part.
Okay. And so what is an emergency suspension?
So that would be within the chief's discretion, pending these things listed in A1, an investigatory administrative charging committee, trial board process, they can do an emergency suspension, mean suspend the officer with or without pay.
And A2 is just a limitation though on A1. So A1 gives the chief the discretion to impose an emergency suspension with or without pay. Right. Under A2, if the chief goes without pay, then that emergency suspension without pay can only last 30 days. So there's a limitation on it if it's an administrative proceeding only.
Okay, and then with the amendment, we're just saying that the emergency suspension could go no more than 30 days with pay or without pay.
Yeah, I was under the impression that the amendment was to be, and that would be, but I guess I'm confused.
I'll just say this. That's what I thought too. I mean, it may be something different, but when there was the discussion around whether it was with or without pay for
the PBJ,
the crimes listed, and Delegate Lopez, it's your motion. I think we're just all confused about what the actual motion is because with or without pay is already in A.
This is what I'm thinking. In an effort to make B conform with the top part, or A, I should say, I was trying to make those things consistent. But after thinking about this a little bit and hearing the conversation back and forth, I'm going to withdraw the friendly amendment and we can just keep going so this conversation moves on. Because I think it's confusing and I don't think it really helps.
Okay, Delegate Moon.
Yeah, just for clarity's sake here, I think we were confused about what's going on in this section because I think with the way I'm reading this in the bill as the original amendment is that the chief may oppose a suspension, but if it's a suspension related to these serious crimes, it's going to be a suspension without pay, but there may not be a suspension. So I think it's double covered in a way that we didn't think it was originally.
So I agree with Moon that for these serious things pending the investigation, the chief shall impose a suspension and it is without pay. Okay. And then below is terminate. But Delegate Lopez, you're withdrawing your friendly amendment. Okay.
Yeah, let's keep it
Moon,
moving.
put your hand down. Delegate Arakan.
Okay, now I understand where we are because I was really confused about which place we were fixing and now we're unfixing. But I still want to say that I do have some concern with just shall versus may. I mean, why are we not giving any discretion here? In B.
Because that
I
has to
think
do
that
with criminal charges.
Is that how it's, is it currently like that? What is the current process?
They're serious charges.
Well, charges don't mean guilty. That's my worry. But what's the current process?
Lieber sets forth some procedure for emergency suspensions, but I'd have to pull that up. And if you can give me a second, I'm happy to do that.
It's going to be a race between you and Alex. Who gets it first?
Okay, it's 7:16. We're almost at the finish line.
Okay. So yeah, it's actually covered under 3-112 of the public safety article. So with pay is a chief may impose an emergency suspension if it appears that the action is in the best interest of the agency. Yeah, if they're suspended with pay, the chief may suspend the police powers, and someone who's suspended with pay is entitled to a prompt hearing. If they're suspended without pay, they're charged with a felony, and they're also entitled to a prompt hearing. So with pay, certain things; without pay is limited to felonies.
Okay, so what we're really changing then is misdemeanors while on duty, misdemeanors related to domestic violence, and misdemeanors involving dishonesty, fraud, theft, or misrepresentation. And these are all ors. So what kind of, could you again tell me what the misdemeanors with dishonesty are, Matt? What kind of charges are those?
I think it's trying to capture like crimes of moral turpitude, but I would defer to Claire on the exact. It's trying to take a wide breadth of just anything that would involve dishonesty and whatnot, fraud, theft, misrepresentation, crimes of moral turpitude. I would have to pull that up as well and cross-reference, but generally that's that.
Okay, yeah. It seems like it's such a wide range, you know? I mean, we can move on from here. I'll just lodge my concern verbally.
Delegate Griffith.
Madam Chair, to reconfirm what we're doing here. So right now for a felony charge, a police officer can be suspended without pay right now. Just to reconfirm that, Matt, I'm sorry.
Sorry, you kind of cut out on my end.
Oh, I'm sorry. So right now, a police officer can be suspended without pay for a felony, correct?
If they're charged with a felony.
Charged with felony.
Correct.
But now this would extend that all the way down to misdemeanors, correct?
It would extend it down to misdemeanors. Yes, it would.
And dishonesty?
Correct. Yes, any misdemeanor involving dishonesty, fraud, theft, or misrepresentation.
And so right now, this is not with or without pay. This is without pay, correct?
Yes, that would fall under B, and it would be always without pay.
So what I would propose, Delegate Lopez, would you be willing to extend the with or without pay to anything below a felony?
No.
What changed from the original offering of the friendly amendment to this?
The confusion.
What's
Nobody know what was trying to happen. Listen, I mean, frankly, hearing the comments that Delegate Davis put forward, I think provides some additional perspective here. And thinking about it through the lens of, the severity of some of the crimes that these people are going to be charged with, and how people outside of law enforcement are treated under the law, and just, the realities of those situations, I think I'm fine keeping the amendment the way it is now that we've had a thorough discussion of all the details.
But that's why we're not including felonies. We're backing it down to just misdemeanors and dishonesty and just the charges. So we're eliminating the serious.
I think the charge of domestic violence at a misdemeanor level is significant. And I don't think you should be charged, if someone's charged, there's, it's not just a blanket allegation, like you've been charged, that's significant. So to me, I don't want law enforcement who've been charged with beating their wives to still be on the beat. I don't think that's responsible.
They wouldn't be on the beat. This is just, I'm not arguing the suspension. I'm just saying with or without pay. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the suspension.
Yeah, I think it's.
I'm not pushing back on the suspension at all.
Yeah, I think it's a significant enough offense where there should be penalties, including having their pay withheld. And if you don't agree with that, then, that's fine. That we each have an opportunity to vote, and our votes have equal weight. But that's how I feel about it.
What about suspected of lying?
Yeah, that's listed on there.
I'm just saying, but I mean, should, again, a young police officer with 2 little kids at home who's living paycheck to paycheck be able to be suspended without pay for up to 30 days and not be able to pay their bills because somebody thinks they may be lying?
Can I interject, Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
And Delegate Griffith? Because
Sure.
first of all, this conversation is great, and it has, I can see arguments on both sides, right? So I think Delegate Griffith, what Delegate Davis pointed out, and I am certainly sympathetic to someone who there's allegations and they're not going to receive pay and they're living paycheck to paycheck. But to Delegate Davis's point, there are individuals who are arrested, spend time in jail until they are proven innocent. They're minimum wage worker, low wage worker, unable to go to work, living paycheck to paycheck. And, they may or may not have kids and have family members. So it's like what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I guess my question is, does one unfairness justify another unfairness?
Well, we got to make it fair all the way around.
I agree. And we should work to make it fair. I just don't want to, and we should work to make the other issue fair as well. I just don't want to say, well, this is unfair, so then we're going to make this unfair too. I think we should make this fair and continue to work as a body to make this other piece fair as well.
Delegate McComas and then Delegate Bartlett. You're on mute.
There has been a lot of reforms as far as keeping people in jail. So I respect what Delegate Davis said, but usually folks get out and they're encouraged to get recognizance. And so there's the bails, or the bail industry's gone. Some of the counties have pretrial release programs. So as far as domestic violence goes, a husband and wife can get into a fight and the husband gets angry and throws a cup toward the wife, but he's really aiming at the wall, doesn't hit the wife, but she can go to commissioner and get him charged with domestic violence. That's how easy it happens. So to say that, well, the person's charged with domestic violence, come on. And particularly if there's other reasons, because it's used as a pretext to get the guy out of the house. I'm just saying games are played all over the field here. And I think that this is just really saying that, well, law officers have less rights than the average Joe. And I think it's going to be a disincentive for anyone to want to apply to be a police officer. We already have that problem. So what are we doing? We're setting public policy. Public policy has unintended consequences. And I realize that, you know, Delegate Davis is always concerned about balancing the scales so that they're even. But is it going to be good for society? Because we have to deal with public safety. Is it going to be good for our communities that we're going to have less people wanting to be police? Because that's where we're going. And that's the reality. So we might not see it in a year, but in a couple of years, we'll see that that's what we've done. So why don't we just reframe this as this is the get rid of police bill, because it's going to be a disincentive. And this is just one more chip at people not wanting to go into this profession.
Delegate Bartlett, and then Delegate Griffith, and then Delegate Davis.
Move the question.
Delegate, okay, I appreciate that. Delegate Griffith.
Well, if you're not going to move the question, then I'll make my comments. But I have comments, and I was holding them because everybody else has a comment. And I've just been sitting here because I know how we started. We wanted to get to the end. And I'm looking and trying to make sure we get to the end, but people are just, you know, so I'm going to go ahead and comment then, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yep.
Okay. Listen, we hear in judiciary all the time about people who have spent their lives in jail who were 100% innocent. This is a charge. This is a charge that is brought by other police officers, okay, arresting someone, and then the state's attorney, another arm of law enforcement, bringing charges against an individual. And we all know that you cannot just, well, you're not supposed to just bring charges willy-nilly. It's supposed to be at least probable cause or some level of certainty that this person did whatever they're claiming to have done. And with all respect, Delegate McComas, there are people still sitting in jail who are waiting for a trial to be heard on whether or not they are guilty or innocent. They have lost their job. Their family have lost their jobs because they keep trying to go back and forth to the jail of where that individual is located. You know, I keep hearing that we're not treating police officers, we're putting them at a higher scale or higher level or whatever. I keep hearing that. And while I can respect and understand that statement, I strongly disagree that we are putting police officers or putting more on them than we are on fellow human beings. And if there is any assumption that there is more on them than any other human beings, it is because of the power that has been granted to these individuals with respect to public safety. These are public safety officers. So if you can't manage your home, and you should not be throwing cups at anybody, quite frankly, that's a telltale sign. If you can't sit back and let your wife say whatever she's got to say without throwing a cup at her, then I don't want you on the street. So personally, I just think that while I understand and I can respect it, I think that when you have these charges brought against you, you need to sit at home for a little bit. You're not being sent to jail like I would be, or any of you would be. You need to sit at home a little bit and think about what you've been done and work on your case. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Bartlett. Delegate Davis, Deborah Davis.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. So we're almost done. And this has been a grading situation. Okay, because I feel we're fighting for Marylanders' lives. And so all of this talk about not treating police officers in their jobs fair and police officers not wanting to be police officers. If I have got to fight for my life and pay you to do it, we don't need you. And I want to say one thing, and I've been dying to say it because I need you to know how this feels. There's a favorite quote that I have. Matter of fact, it's on my wall. and it's by Zora Neale Hurston, and she was a famous poet writer during the Harlem Renaissance. And it says, if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. So I'm going to say that we have been silent trying to get through this process, and it has made our colleagues really comfortable. We heard from hundreds of people saying, help us. Help us. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to my son. We've seen people talk about being wrongly incarcerated for years. I mean, we've seen that. And to sit here and act like anything near the status quo is acceptable hurts. I'm going to stop covering up my pain. It hurts because people are dead. And just because they look like me, I'm telling you, it feels like you don't care because they're brown and black. It feels like that. I'm not accusing you of it, but we see disproportionate over policing. You've heard it. You're the experts on it now. You've heard about disproportionate arrests. You've heard about disproportionate incarcerations. You've heard about disproportionate death penalties. You've heard it. You have absolutely heard it. And we sit there and we're taught, well, in my family, we're taught to keep our pain to ourselves because you really don't care. We're taught to keep our pain to ourselves, but it is tough. And for me to be here at this moment in time, I am telling you, it doesn't make it easier, but do know that we're gonna stand up and we're gonna make some changes, whether you like it or not. And it hurts. I'm tired of hiding my pain. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Davis. Delegate Griffith?
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Delegate Griffith. So we are returning to the Lopez amendment as written, and we will do a roll call. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson?
Yes.
Delegate Arakan?
This is going to be a hard one because that was a very impassioned and emotional speech, and I hadn't thought about it because that's not the life that I grew up with. So it's different for us. Okay, I'm a yes on this piece.
Delegate Bartlett?
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis?
Yes.
Delegate Griffith?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate McComas?
No.
Delegate Moon?
Yes.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
Delegate Sham?
If you could oblige me for just 1 minute,
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes, Delegate.
I'm the unicorn in all of this, being a Black woman who happens to be Republican. It's hard for me with all this reform that's going on and deaths of people who look like me, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. It's not easy. It's not easy. I'm Black. I love Black people. All of my family's Black. I have Black friends who I love dearly, and I don't want to see them killed unlawfully, questionably. I don't want to see that. Then I have police officer friends who are great people, nice people, who I love dearly as well. So it's hard. It's hard. I get it, Delegate Davis. It's really hard. Delegate Bartlett, it's hard. I get it. I don't think we're as Republicans don't want to see reform. We all have to, and I hate to even use this word, but I can't think of another word, compromise what's most important. We're the lawmakers for Maryland. We're making big, big decisions here, really big decisions. So with all that being said, I say yes
Thank you. And the motion passes 10-1. Okay, moving along. Delegate Shetty, you have an amendment on page 38, everyone, related to victims' rights. Do you want to speak about that, or would you like Matt to run through it? You want to say anything about it? Have Matt talk about it?
I can just speak really briefly, but this comes after we've heard from a number of witnesses from a number of different bills share some of their challenges with getting information after filing a complaint. And so there are a couple of different components of this section. One is the requirement of a victim rights advocate who will explain to a complainant the process and guide them through the information that they will need in order to file a complaint. There's also a requirement that a database be established that provides information to victims or to complainants about the status of their case at any point. And then if you will please scroll a little bit more on the document. Thank you. Sorry, I should pull up a version that I can read because that's a little small for me, even with my glasses. I apologize. A little bit more information will be provided to the complainant about sort of the status of their complaint at different points of the process. So Matt, if you want to provide a little bit more depth on the amendment, that would be great.
Sure. I just think the point of the amendment is to give the complainant the opportunity to just understand the process and to also put some guardrails regarding timing around everything. So, the summary of the complaint of the a case summary has to be provided to the complainant through the victim's rights advocate. And also, if you see on page 39, right in the middle, subsection C there, it also places some timing requirements as well there that the investigating unit of a law enforcement agency has to immediately review the complaint. An administrative charging committee has to review the findings of that unit within 30 days after completion, or they have to ask for further time for review. And also that the general process of investigation through the charging has to be completed within 1 year and 1 day so that these matters don't languish forever in an investigation and charging stage.
With that, I move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson?
Yes.
Delegate Aricam?
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett?
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis?
Yes.
Delegate Griffith?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate McComas?
No, because we don't know what have no idea how the cost.
Delegate Moon?
No,
Yes. Yes.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
Delegate Cham?
Yes.
Passes 10-1. Okay, and we have, if you turn the page, the speaker has a small amendment here, little 3/4 of the way down, 3-110. A police officer who is the subject of a complaint of police misconduct and the complainant both have right to representation. Pretty straightforward. I'll move the amendment. Any second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call on the amendment. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson?
Yes.
Delegate Aricam?
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Yes.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Cham.
Yes.
Passes. Next, we have an amendment, bottom of page 39, goes to the top of page 40, related to whistleblower, inspired by Delegate Chams. She had submitted a couple amendments related to whistleblower protection. So Delegate Jackson, could you speak on this, please?
Delegate Cham.
Cham,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Jackson is my alter ego.
I said, I'm sorry. Did I call you? I'm sorry. I called Matt Delegate Jackson, didn't I? I'm just,
No problem. We're all tired.
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I'll make it pretty quick. Whistleblower amendment just about the police officer who made a complaint that he won't be at risk of being discharged or disciplined, demoted, or denied a promotion, or transferred, or reassigned, or discriminated against, or threatened to the police officer's employment because of the police officer disclosed information that evidences mismanagement, a waste of any government resources, danger of public health or safety, violation of any policies, and he can lawfully exercise his constitutional rights. I move this amendment.
I second it. Any discussion on Delegate Cham's amendment? Okay, roll call. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Yes.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
and Delegate Sham.
Yes.
And that passes. And there is a technical amendment. Matt, what is this?
Sure. So we've got a speaker amendment at the top of page 40.
Yeah, sorry.
Favorable.
Would you like to do all of these as a group down through 41?
Yes, yeah.
Sure. So top of page 41, you have a speaker amendment. It just specifies that the police officer still has a right to bring suit, that they have a right to engage in political activity, that they also may not be prohibited from secondary employment. So those are specifically being added in. The technical amendment you see on page 40 is just putting back in order something that you removed in a prior amendment. So this is language is exactly the same as it was in the bill as introduced. Moving on to page 41, you'll see up at the top, there is this language right here is tied to the Delegate Shetty and Delegate Erican's amendment regarding the education. This just kind of gives some guidance to MHEC on how to award and do those education scholarship programs. And then at the bottom, you'll see there some of the effective dates have changed. So generally the scholarship, well, it's not really a scholarship program anymore, but the program regarding higher ed and officers is going to have an earlier effective date of October. Some of the warrant and some of Moon's amendments are going to fall in and be effective October 1st, but generally most of the bill is effective July 1st, 2022 to give time for Leober to be repealed and for a process to be set up and put in its place. So that's everything else.
I move the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call on that last group of amendments, speaker amendments, technical amendments. Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
Yes.
Delegate Moon,
Yeah, sorry.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
and Delegate Sham.
Yes.
That passes. We have one last vote to take, folks. And that is on House Bill 670 as amended. I move the bill. Is there,
Wait a minute. I have an amendment.
okay, what's the amendment?
I was trying to raise a amendment on civil damages, if that's possible, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do we have it?
Yeah, I have an amendment. It's amendment 333527/1.
Wait, say it again. 33.
527/1.
527/1. Let me see if Liz has it. Oh, I do see she does have it. So give her a second to pull it up here.
One more time, Delegate Moon, the number?
It's 333527/1.
Okay, thank you.
I am hungry.
This will be real quick, real quick.
And I need a little something to sip on.
We're almost there for today.
Yeah.
Step at a time.
A little over 3 hours, guys. Kurt, you have a very nice neck, Delegate Anderson.
Oh. I have to get close to the screen to see.
Me too, and they make fun of me. They say, Archon, why am I looking at your eyeball right now? It's really because I didn't get my new prescription this year, and so I can't see with my glasses that well. So I'm like,
It looks like you're trying to jump in.
Yeah.
oh
you're
no.
you're
I mean, I
like,
do
oh.
miss seeing you guys in real life, but you know.
You never see Alex looking that close to the screen because I think she can read everybody's mind.
She's missing it, Nan. She didn't even know we're talking about her.
Oh, she left. Oh, okay. That's the only reason.
Oh,
why.
she knows. My gosh, Moon, how big is
I
this
know you're watching
amendment?
me. I know that
I
for a
know.
fact.
Liz, do you need us to send it to you real quick?
What? You can't see it? I've been sharing it this whole time.
What?
Liz, you,
Girl,
Liz,
you
you have to
sharing it with your
stop.
Oh
phone?
my
Yeah,
God.
you gotta stop share first and then start a new share.
Oh man, that's funny.
Oh my God.
All I can tell you is
Come on
that
now, we down to the wire. We down to the
Do you
wire.
see it now?
Okay, yes, thank you.
Oh my God, I'm sorry.
All right,
Okay.
here we go.
Go ahead, Mo.
All right, so look, I said at our organizing meeting that one of the issues I thought we ought not leave in a comprehensive police reform bill was the issue of compensation and the civil damages that accrue. We had like several bills on this. And so I have what I think is the slimmest possibility here. And you'll realize that the issue presented is that right now, if you are the victim of police violence or misconduct, you are artificially capped at $400,000 in your damages, even if your hospital bills exceed that. So all this amendment does is it makes the cap for police torts the same as if you were injured in a regular personal injury accident from anyone else, like a driver. And so that would bring it to about $890,000 is what the current cap would be at the time of implementation of this bill. But it would be a hard cap, meaning this is both economic and non-economic damages. There would be no surprises, but it gives a little bit of a greater chance that we're actually covering people's bills for this damage. So with that, I would move the amendment, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Second. Okay, thank you. Delegate Erican and then Delegate Griffith.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Can you tell me what the how this cap is in reference to like med-mal?
Well, med-mal is in a whole different category. So what the existing, so this is for the state and local government tort claims caps.
Right.
They're currently for a police claim with a single person injured be $400,000. For the rest of the personal injury claims in the state, it's $875,000 right now, and it goes up $15,000 each year. That also includes economic damages, but we're going to say we're going to cap it all and give that number for police claims, but in total. No runaway pain and suffering, no runaway, $10 million hospital bills. That will just hard cap it at the amount that you get if you're hit by a driver. Right now, it's totally unjust that you get paid less than half if you're injured by a police officer than by a driver. So
interesting, because sometimes there are car accidents involving police officers. How does that work? So would that fall into this tort still?
I would think so.
Currently, so if you're hit by a police cruiser.
Yeah, I don't know if a police cruiser has a separate insurance, regular auto insurance line that would put them more in line with, but putting that aside, it's more like a slip and fall versus, if you get punched by a police officer versus punched by me, same injuries, you're going to recover less if it was a police officer. So
interesting. And when did that go? That's been there for how long?
I don't know. I mean,
and how many of these claims do we have in our state usually? How many of these?
Well, there are quite a good number. I can pull them from the fiscal note, but again, this is just police liability claims, and these are either insured or self-insured. So again, we're talking about a marginal increase on a very small slice of liability claims. And again, so as you see in the omnibus bill, we've dealt with criminal, we've dealt with civil, criminal, administrative, disciplinary proceedings, everything but the actual bills that come when people are injured from this misconduct. So I just would feel really bad if we left this omnibus. We've had the hearings on this. I think we should include something here.
Yeah, and okay, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand what's going to happen. So somebody's injured, they go to civil court, and then this is when the cap comes into play. The judge is able to,
if they're found by the trier that in fact this was the cause of the police, that there's a duty of care, all the normal stuff. So someone has found that it's their fault. They owe. Current law says, well, it doesn't matter how much your bills were. We're only giving you this much. And this much is way lower than any other type of person that you might be injured by.
Right. So then who pays? The county?
Yeah, though again, you're either insured or self-insured in some way. They sort of have planned for these contingencies and suits, so it's not like
a personal, like the officer themselves is not on the hook.
No, this is not. There were different bills that were trying to make the individual officers pay This is more about the government that employed the officer. We are already paying these lawsuits. You see about them in the news. So this is just changing how much you can get to be more fair. It's arbitrarily low right now.
Interesting. Yeah. And so this is going to bring it into par with other county officials. Like if you got hit by the county executive or something, it would fall under a higher cap right now. Is that how it works?
If you got hit by a private citizen, you would get more recovery now than if you got hit by a police officer.
What about another government employee, like another county employee?
So if you guys remember this, so this was a separate bill. This was Delegate Moon had this under a separate bill, and we had a whole hearing on the situation. And so there were a lot of folks that testified in favor. And one of the main points that came out that just caught my attention was that if you are in your run-of-the-mill personal injury, then you can get more than if you suffer from police brutality. And in fact, there was the woman, I don't know if you remember, Delegate Erica, she testified with her son who was in the wheelchair. And I mean, her whole family essentially was trying to rally around because, I mean, he couldn't do anything for himself, literally. And
yes, I think I remember this. Yes.
So this amendment is that, but it's actually pared down from what Moon had in his bill. So that's this.
Yeah,
I tried to delete the cap altogether in the bill, and I guess that doesn't fly. So
I can't imagine that you would try to do that. No. Okay, I guess I'm wondering if there's a parity between other county employees. Like, are we now just singling out police involved?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, look,
versus...
we had this conversation, and while I would love to blow this up for all manner of government employees, number one, I don't think we could do that on this bill without going outside of the scope of the police reform omnibus. And number two, I'm not sure they would have let me even have this conversation right now because of the possible cost and MACO MML screaming that we would have. Also, to be clear, this is intended to be a prospective only amendment, which would mean it would be for torts that happen as of the effective date of the bill going forward. And if there's some clarification needed on that, we can tighten it up before it gets to full committee.
Yeah, and if you have a fiscal note on the amendment, I would at least, I'd like to see it before we vote on the full bill in committee. Just so I know what we're getting ourselves into financially. Okay.
Sure, we can try to drag some info. So I move the amendment, Madam Chair.
Second, is there any discussion on the amendment? Okay, roll call on Delegate Moon's amendment. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson?
Yes.
Delegate Erican?
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett?
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis?
Yes.
Delegate Griffith?
Yes.
Delegate Lopez?
Yes.
Delegate McComas?
Absolutely not.
Delegate Moon?
Yes.
Delegate Shetty?
Yes.
Delegate Cham?
Yes.
And that passes. Okay, folks, we are on the bill as amended. House Bill 670 as amended. I move favorable. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call on House Bill 670 as amended. Delegate Atterbury, yes. Delegate Anderson,
Yes.
Delegate Erican,
No.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Absolutely.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Cham.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
This is just subcommittee. We have more discussions before we.
Correct. This would move the bill out of subcommittee into the full Judiciary Committee which the chair would preside over. And we get to have this debate all over again.
Okay, all right. Yes.
Are you all done yet?
Who is that
Mr.
mask?
Chair.
That's a photo bomb.
And that passes 8-3. I just want to thank everyone. This has been a very, as Delegate Sham mentioned, emotional process on so many levels, very difficult process. And I think that everyone on all sides of the different issues did this in a very civil way. And I really, honestly, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We've put a lot of time and effort and energy into this. So thank you. I want to absolutely thank my staff, Liz. I want to thank the chair's staff, Dylan. I want to thank speaker staff, Matt Jackson. I want to thank Alex. And I want to definitely thank our wonderful counsel, Claire, for working on all these issues with us again. So with that, thank you very much. Give yourselves a round of applause. And everyone have a good evening. Go have a cocktail or two.
Before we go, I'm sorry, new kid on the block, still on that learning curve. I meant to vote no because I know we have more.
Okay, not a problem.
Actually, I thought that was a very bold vote, that yes vote. I'm saying.
I did too. I was like,
I'm making sure. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I was supposed to say no. We're still trying to tinker with it.
yes. So now it will move into full committee, and
We can object to her changing her vote, by the way.
No,
it didn't change the outcome, so it's fine.
That's right. That's right.
It's
Oh,
fine.
damn.
Just for me, it made me feel better to do it the right way.
All right.
All right. Good night, all.
Thanks, guys. Have a